Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy that you've all made it here to our very last forum of the year, Military Family Forum of the Year. Okay. Again, my name is Patty Barron, and this is day 3, and very happy that you all were able to join us. I really want to give a shout out to our virtual audience. You guys have been phenomenal. I just cannot imagine that you've taken the time at work, at home, to view these forums and to be a part of this conversation. And I just want to thank you from my heart very, very much. Thank you. And so today we have a treat for you. I think you're going to really enjoy the day today. To get us started, I'm just going to give some quick administrative notes. In the room, we will have the mics, and so when it's time for Q&A, we can use the mics in the room. And then, as always, virtual delegates, we want you to send your questions to our Facebook page. A reminder that we received many questions and unfortunately didn't have time to answer all of them, but we will be sending all of the questions to the subject matter experts, and you will see the answer to your questions by coming back to our Facebook page, looking under the photo of the person that you asked the question of, and the answers will be there. And we're going to be putting them there within the next couple of weeks. So please just keep back and keep checking. The other thing that I wanted to remind you or tell you is that you have a form on your tables for the in-house audience that the Office of Public Affairs has asked that you fill out. It's a survey to see how we're doing and what we did well and what we need to do better for next time. So it is very important, and if you get an opportunity to fill that out, we'd really appreciate it, because we won't let you out of the room unless you give it to us. No, just teasing. I have some very special guests to introduce this morning that are going to get us started. And again, if you remember what I told you at the very beginning, that the theme of this forum was finding what you need, when you need it, where you need it. And we started with that community of family. Yesterday we talked about the community, the geographic community that we live in. And today we're going to discuss that other community that seems to have taken over, at least my life, the virtual community. And many of us live online these days and really focus on connecting with others through the many online social media outlets that there are. So we will be discussing this concept in a very fun way today. And I need us to get started with some very interesting and wonderful folks. The Garrison Command Team from Fort Drum, New York, Colonel Rosenberg and Command Sergeant Major Oldroyd.
Let's see if this mic is working. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
I think it is working, sir.
Okay. Hey, Ms. Barron, thank you for the introduction. I'd also like to welcome everybody with us here today, both physically and virtually. As you know, this is the final forum, Forum 4 of the Military Family Forums. As Ms. Barron said, I'm Colonel Gary Rosenberg. I'm the Garrison Commander from Fort Drum, New York.
And I'm Mark Oldroyd, the Garrison Command Sergeant Major.
This morning we've got the special privilege of opening today's forum and of introducing our keynote speakers. But before we do that, Sergeant Major Oldroyd and I wanted to share a couple of observations and 2 anecdotal stories that kind of go to the power of these virtual communities.
As Mrs. Barron mentioned, smartphones and near continuous access to the internet is becoming, or more accurately has become, vital part of our lives. If you aren't already on social media, you need to. But the good news here is that it's very easy to start out.
So Sergeant Major Oldroyd and I are here this morning to share our experiences down where what I call the rubber meets the road is. The Installation Management Command in general and the garrisons in particular are charged with taking care of our soldiers, our families, our Department of the Army civilians, and also our retirees. And in order to do that, I think it comes as no surprise to anybody here, we need to be able to communicate with those people. And social media is an integral part of our ability to communicate with them. It's both the present way we do it, and it is also the future way we do that. And it's particularly relevant right now during times of reduced budget and manpower because it gives us the ability to punch above our weight and reach more people than we could otherwise. So with that, we want to share a couple of truths with you that we found through experience down where the rubber meets the road, and then share 2 anecdotes.
Our principal audience is our soldiers and our families, our civilian employees and our retirees. To a lesser extent, but equally important, our surrounding and supporting communities. The good news here is that our supporting communities are already on social media. So we have to be able to communicate and get information. Otherwise, we're going to become irrelevant.
So, as Sergeant Major said, the good news is they're already using it. The other good news is they want to hear from us. We can be, in fact, we should be, I would challenge us all, we have to be the most reliable source of accurate information available. However, accuracy isn't enough. It also needs to be timely and it needs to be easily accessible. And if we're not, we're going to be irrelevant.
We have to be agile and adaptive. Right now, it seems that Facebook is the most popular thing at Fort Drum. But many of us can recall before we had Facebook, we had MySpace. And these things keep changing. In fact, the only constant, as we all know, is change. And we need to stay abreast. But currently, what we're starting to see is our younger soldiers are starting to migrate to Instagram and to Twitter. And they almost use these exclusively. So we have to keep up if we want to stay relevant with all the emerging trends.
So those of us that were born a day before yesterday can sometimes be a little risk averse as we go into this environment, because in the social media environment, you know, anybody can say anything. It's a lot harder to control that flow of information. And that's a little scary, but I would tell you that's not something that should deter us. It certainly doesn't deter our audience. The other thing I would tell you, and I think this comes as no surprise either, is this is the ultimate in caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware, okay? And why do I say that? Well, there's a lot of false information out there. And so I think probably most of you have seen that State Farm commercial. I think they call it state of denial, the French model. If I describe it, you'll probably know. It's got a woman that comes out of her apartment. There's a guy down there working on his app, talking about doing something with an accident he just has. And she says, you know, they can't put anything on the internet that isn't true. And he says, oh yeah, where'd you hear that? Well, on the internet. And she says, oh look, here comes my date. I met him online. He's a French model. You know what I'm talking about? So I think that's a great example of, hey look, you know, not everything you see is true. And so we've got to understand that, which gets back to my point, is our audience is pretty adept at, and our community is pretty adept at sorting what's factual and what's not, but we need to help them. And what we found at the garrison level is as you put that information out there and you cross-link it to all these different Facebook pages, from the web page to the actual newspaper and all these different sources, you've got to have a tie back to the source. It's got to come back to the commander's page, if you will, because what that does is that helps our community verify the accuracy of that information, and we found that that's a key aspect of social media.
The social media, though, is not the be-all, end-all. To be successful in communicating, we have to make sure that all our information vehicles are linked and work in tandem. We have a post newspaper. We print or tie the social hyperlinks to that post newspaper. When we hand out flyers, we make sure that we have those little QR codes on there. We make sure that everything is linked together and shared so that we know when that we have our information going out and it's consistent. The thing here is that sometimes that can be tough because you look at it and say, well, we need trained people to do that. But we have trained photographers, and they, with a little nuance, can go out and shoot those same pictures for the newspaper, and then they can use the same ones for social media. It's something that they can do. They're trained to do this. It's not that hard. So all the places and pieces of the shop work together, and that helps us to stay on message.
So the ability to communicate effectively, if done correctly, seems seamless. But I would tell you, and probably many of you know here, on the backside it's very labor intensive. And so I would submit now is not the time for us in the Army to be cutting the manpower and the resources from what I think is our most critical means in communicating with our audiences. And that's all of them: soldiers, families, retirees, our DA civilians, and the surrounding communities that support us. But as Sergeant Major said, social media isn't the be-all, end-all. What it really comes down to is people. It still takes people. It takes well-trained people and caring people, and only they can take care of our soldiers, our families, our civilians, and our retirees. People are our most valuable resource. There is no doubt about that. And in the end, it really is all about people. Communicating with them, enabling them, both with information and whatever resources they might need, and caring for them. And so to try and illustrate that fact, we're now going to share a couple of vignettes with you, and then we'll introduce our keynote speakers. So the first vignette's from my BOSS program. And so as you can imagine, the BOSS program uses social media to talk to the single soldiers. Why? Because many of the single soldiers are young, and that's what they use to communicate with each other. What you may not realize is we also use that to communicate with a lot of these single soldiers' families, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, and other folks. And so not too long ago, our Fort Drum BOSS Facebook page got a private message. A little thing popped up, and it was a mother who was contacting the BOSS program because she said she was concerned her son had been telling her on the phone when they talked that there was nothing to do and that he didn't have any friends. And so, you know, part of that is the fact that he's a young soldier and he's new to both the Army and to Fort Drum, so that's understandable. But it turns out this particular soldier was a little bit shy. Now, I know some of you are thinking, shy in the Army? Come on, give me a break. But we all know that's true. We've got all different kinds of people in the Army, and some people are introverted. And this particular soldier was. So this shy young man, this soldier, had expressed to his mother that he was in a new area, a new organization, and he hadn't yet made any friends or found anything he was interested to do. And so you don't have to be a psychologist to kind of see how this can go south quickly. This could turn potentially dangerous, could devolve into depression, and it could get worse than that. And so the fact is, we all need to feel connected, and we all need to feel a part of something. So as you can imagine, this son's revelation to his mother tore at her heartstrings. It made her sick. And she did what any mom would do. She leapt into action. Did she physically come to Fort Drum? No, that's not what she did. She got on Google, she typed in Fort Drum, she found our webpage, she found a link to BOSS. From BOSS, she found a link to the Facebook page, and she sent one of those personal messages. And our Facebook BOSS rep on Facebook through MWR got the message. And basically, the mother briefly explained the situation, and the BOSS rep said, hey, that's easy. Here's a list of events we got going on. Here's some things we got coming up that maybe your son would like to get involved in. And so the bottom line is, through this social media, we were able to take somebody who was not physically located there, but who has a dog in the fight, so to speak. She cares deeply about her son, connect her to the people at the garrison who had the answers, and help her son. And the good news is, he's out of the barracks, he's doing things, he's making friends, and he's having a good time there at Fort Drum, and he's a more productive soldier because of it. And that's just one example of the power of being connected.
And I have another. This is an example that at Fort Drum we have going on quite a bit, and it's common throughout the Army. We have military units returning from Afghanistan. Well, when they're coming back, we all know that family members get excited, especially as the plane information, arrival times are showing up. And we all know, if you've been in the Army a day or two, that these times change. And that creates anxiety. But the spouses and the family members are able to go to the Fort Drum webpage. They're linked in with, and they can get the ceremony times. They're also going to the hotline, the Welcome Home Ceremony hotline on the telephone, and they go to the smartphone and they're linked to the unit websites, the Facebook pages for the units. So they have those different social medias access, and as you know, many of them have them going on simultaneously as it's getting closer and closer. The importance here is that we have to realize, or we have realized, that we're not only addressing an audience of the immediate family, of the spouses and the children. We're talking about moms and dads, grandparents, friends, uncles, aunts, and they're coming, or they want to know about the event from all across the world. And as the event gets closer, they start to get a little bit more anxious. So those times have to be linked. So it's a very high emotion event. It's a great event, as you guys that have been part of it know. And by having the information out timely and accurately, we help to make that something that's successful through social media. But speed, accuracy, and consistency are so important. we have to be right, we have to be fast, and we have to be consistent. Because if we're not, we're going to lose our audience and our relevance. But if we are, and we focus on being relevant, we keep a special day very special.
So that's enough from Sergeant Major and I. What we wanted to do, what I hope we've done, is demonstrate the fact that social media has become a vital part of our lives, and that through it we are able to expand our reach well beyond what we used to be able to reach. And now we have the honor of introducing our keynote speakers. So as was stated earlier, over the last couple of days, the military family forums have focused on communities, the family community, the Army community, and our larger virtual neighborhood. And in this final forum, we're exploring our reach. We'll further explore our reach into that virtual community. And I believe that's a community that ties us all together. So today's keynote speakers are shining examples of one such community, the Army Wife Network. It's a grassroots effort founded by two military spouses, ladies and gentlemen, Tara Crooks and Star Henderson.
Good morning, everyone. You had breakfast? All right, that's the way we like to hear it. Well, good morning. Thank you guys so much for our introduction. What a great team, right? We are super excited to be here with you today. Before we get started and tell you all about Army Wife Network, you need to know that we're on social media. So you can go find us on your smartphone right now. It won't upset us at all. Facebook.com/ArmyWifeNetwork. Or on Twitter, our handle is Army Wife Network. So the little @ Army Wife Network. And we'd love to hear tweets. And if you find some quotes that you think are valuable, go ahead and share them. And we'll share those out with our followers as well. So as I mentioned, we are Army Wife Network. We represent a collective group of seasoned Army wives and military community members on a mission to empower the journey, on that journey, and those who follow us. We are interactive empowerment for Army wives. Army Wife Network was opened in April of 2009 as the umbrella that joined what was previously known as Army Wife Talk Radio and Field Problems.
Where it all began. Both Army Wife Talk Radio and Field Problems had the tagline of solving the problems of Army families where it matters most, in the field. So we define field as something synonymous to neighborhood, which is the buzzword for this conference. That is basically anywhere where military spouses are, in their classrooms, events like these, in their community, and nowadays online at 2 a.m. or even really 24/7. So really, like I said, field is synonymous to that neighborhood that we've been talking about for the last couple days. Y'all nodding your heads. So Patty asked us, Army Wife Network, here today to discuss how Army Wife Network connects spouses with one another and to the resources that are out there to support them. And how do these connections help build a better quality of life and support military family members? So we feel like that's a pretty loaded question. We're going to try and fit it into 20 minutes. But to explore that and to develop the answers, we're first going to progress through who we are, how we met, what Army Wife Network is, and then talk about how we help connect our spouses to the neighborhood that's there for them.
All right, so to the slides, a little bit about us. Let's go to the next one.
Got it.
All right. That's my XO at work over here. So my journey began in 1998. Yeah, I'm old. Okay, so moving on. It has progressed. This is my formal apology to the FRG leader that I hung up at Fort Hood, Texas back in 1998. So this FRG leader called me. I was telling the gentleman this morning, called me up and she said, we have a mandatory meeting. It's at 4:30 and you need to bring 36 cookies. And I said, I don't bake and I work and nothing is mandatory for me. Thank you. And I hung up. And when my husband came home later that night, he said, that was our FRG leader. Actually, I think he said that's our FSG leader, but anyhow. And so I said, our what? So yeah, back then I don't know that I was really into it. I didn't know enough about it. But that journey progressed from that to being named the Who's Who Among Military Spouses by Military Spouse Magazine, the American Legion Woman of the Year in 2008, and the Army Spouse of the Year in 2013. I like to refer to that part of my journey and the Army Wife Network part of my journey as when I checked in to the journey. So I'm a military spouse, and what that means, if you were here yesterday, I kind of went over a little bit of this, but what that means is that I have the same types of concerns and the same types of celebrations that any other spouse would have on this journey. And sometimes those concerns are my celebrations, meaning that something like, let's see, strong marriages is something that I celebrate. But it's a lot of hard work, right? So it's a concern to have a strong marriage, but it's a celebration because I do have one. Deployments, hands down, I believe, the hardest thing about military journey. But I can say that without a doubt, through everything that we have gone through as a couple, deployments have made Kevin and I stronger. And my mom counts deployments in the win column because she tells me incessantly, because she likes him more than me, that that's why we're still married. Hey, that was a joke. So welcome to the roller coaster of military life.
All right, so my journey began with the military in 1990 when I wrote daily letters to a basic trainee out at Fort Leonard Wood who was at that time a friend of mine. And so from there, I joined the Army. I really respected his decision, and I joined the Army. It was something that we both have done. And I later married that friend, right, in 1995. And we were both dual military for a time. One of those deployments was mine when I left my husband behind and my small son, who was 3 at the time. When I left the Army, I went and got a master's degree in counseling. And I wanted to use that degree, and with the challenges of military life, that was going to prove difficult. So I found Tara online and have used those experiences and my expertise to work with the originator and producer of Army Wife Talk Radio, where we started, and work with her. She talked about how the celebrations and the concerns are sometimes the same thing. My note is more, sometimes those concerns become water under the bridge and then are later on celebrated. And for instance, that example of where I was talking about how I went and got my master's in counseling, and it was a real concern of mine to figure out how I was going to get a job and use those expertise, and how I'd earn a living and put that degree to use. But eventually it became a celebration as I put those skills to use working with Tara at Army Wife Network in our home business.
And I make her work hard, too, so.
She did call me the XO. You guys all know that's really hard work.
Together we are Crooks and Henderson, and no, we're not a country western band, and we've even been called a consulting firm, which I don't know, maybe they should consult with us. Most people would consider us an unlikely pair. We have a very long laundry list of differences, from short hair to long hair, introvert to extrovert. When we showed up for our first field exercise event that we do from Army Wife Network, we were talking about our differences, and we said, we're as different as black and white. And we looked over and realized that I was in all black and she was in white. And we're like, that was really not on purpose. We really are that different. I mean, this morning, no ice and ice in our water. I mean, I thought, whatever I like, just say the opposite.
Still people confuse us.
They do. I got confused yesterday. But it's what we share that brought us together.
We really are just Tara Crooks and Star Henderson, business partners, but better yet, battle buddies. And we lead those collective women that work for us, fellow military spouses, on a mission to empower not only our audience, but ourselves. We count this as our therapy as well. And so we love to learn from the people that are willing to teach us, as well as mentor those that are willing to learn. And we're really interested in connecting military spouses beyond just the team of 10 that we have at Army Wife Network. It's really a mission, and we considered our mission to provide relevant resources and information, networking opportunities, both in person and now online, and provide that expert advice that they're looking for. We pride ourselves in providing a positive and encouraging network, and we are a conduit. We like to say that we're the spokes that connect the people to the resources. We've never set out to be the resource, and we just do that connecting that I spoke of just earlier.
So who is Army Wife Network connecting with? I say this is painting with a very broad brush, but we're going to talk about who the average military spouse is. Here's some statistics for you up here. Can you read them through here? 56.6% of the active duty force is married. 93.1% of active duty spouses are female. 73.2% of active duty spouses are 35 years of age or younger. Civilian spouses are, on average, 31 years old. 42.7% have been married for less than 4 years, and 70.8% for less than 10 years. 31.7% of spouses are very satisfied, and 53.6% are more or less satisfied with the way that things are going in their lives personally.
Many of you may not be able to see our slides, but that's from the profile of the military community and the survey of the Army families. So as I look around, I think it would be an easy win to say that most of our audience are not really the average military spouse. Tara and I aren't necessarily the average military spouse anyway, nowadays. We are sort of.
You're calling me old.
Yeah, I know. As I say, we do kind of marry up with those average statistics. We're typical in the fact that we're, the same gender, the same age-ish I have on here. We're both in our first marriage, and we both have young children. So as community supporters, we ask that you guys are aware of who that average military spouse is, what they look like. And we're going to look at other attributes later, too, between the different generations as we go along. For instance, how might the boomers or Generation X spouses view social media differently? Additionally, organizations should be thinking outside of the average military spouse and integrating the atypical spouse, like our male spouses, our newly recognized partners, Spanish-speaking families. And like one speaker said yesterday, there is no cookie-cutter approach. And so what we're asking also, because I'm a guard wife, and I know you guys listened to Angela Caban yesterday, we have to think about those too, in the geographically dispersed family. Like the Sergeant Major said, that's not just moms and dads anymore, that's aunts, uncles, neighbors, your previous employers. They're checked into my journey too. So we don't need to talk much about the gender gap, but this graphics, speaks volumes. And we are certain that you experience the gender gap in everyday interaction. And so I just want you guys to look at this and see where you may fit in the spectrum of how the military is made up. Boomers are World War II era through 1960, and so they make up less than 10% of our neighborhood. Generation X is comprised from the 60s to the 80s, and the millennials are everyone else, basically the newbies. And if you look and you read into what the millennial personality is like, it's just that, status and authority aren't necessarily impressive to them. Red tape just frustrates them. And they expect some control and access to media 24/7, and that's why they're on online social media. So therein lies the problem. Because when you're working with big corporations or military or DOD, there's some red tape involved, and the control is directed, and the access is pretty limited with, like I said, plenty of the red tape to go around. So just keep in mind when you're trying to reach out to these military spouses that for every spouse out there like you, there's going to be one that's not like you that you're trying to reach, who's going to reason differently, and they're going to value different things, and they're going to learn differently. So you have to have many ways to reach many people. Don't use your cookie cutter, but we male spouses call that a Semper Gumby business plan. And so what you don't see here, though, is the communication, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We all communicate differently, too. According to the Blue Star Family's latest survey of military families, less than half of the boomers feel that social media is very important. But if you compare that to the millennials, over 60% feel that it's very important. And I think that speaks volumes.
So just like we shared that we have our differences, and they are abound, we also unite over common ground. Military families are very diverse, but no matter what the service, no matter what the relationship is, we have a relationship with that certain kind of person. We have that relationship with the patriot. For example, we walk that fine line of love and hate of the military, Well, we do.
This coming from the authors of 1001 Things to Love About Military Life. Some things we love to hate. I'm sorry.
Some things you just do. We all have tips and tricks for how we manage those emotions from living that military life, impatience and dread of a deployment, but we've got that reunion elation or those nerves of reunion and the celebration. We know our acronyms. I mean, what was the most popular post last week on AWN was, what OPSEC, PCS, and something else meant, but you didn't know what LMBO and SMH meant, which was laugh my butt off and shake my head.
Okay. I just learned that.
We had to go Google that, but we're good. And it was wildly popular. So obviously we know our acronyms. We speak in those acronyms. We speak in military time because this is our life too.
So here are some concerns of a military family. As organizations and supporters, you might ask, what do military families need? How can we as a resource community quiet some of these concerns listed here? The answer is not as simple as you think, but then sometimes it might be simpler than we think. We think too hard, and we love that acronym, KISS, keep it simple, sweetie. And so we need to think again, really, how we're going to reach these family members. And also you need to know that some family members don't even know what they need. That's a good example with the sergeant major and the garrison commander was about the boss soldier, or the soldier. He knows he needs something to get him out of the barracks, but he wasn't sure what he needed. So while information and resources might be readily available to families, we all know this if you're checking in and you're aware of the resources, many military families have a hard time finding and making that connection. There's just a huge disconnect in the awareness. And they're unaware that there are things out there that can make their lives so much easier and simpler. And then you have the other side of the coin where there's just so much to choose from. They don't know the right answer, quote unquote right answer. And so they have a difficulty with that. And then of course there's kids, and there's debt, and there's deployments, and they just don't know how they're going to connect. So these are the stories of our concerns.
Here's some quotes from our readers and from our listeners on those specific topics. On loneliness, I don't know how to deal with the emptiness that I'm feeling. On staying connected, the biggest challenge is working out where to get the services and staying connected when you need something.
Sorry, can I get a hooah?
Does it sound familiar? I know I have a problem, I just don't know how to fix it, and I don't know who can help me fix it. On marriage difficulties, I never imagined I would end up not having more children with this man, contemplating divorce, and facing the reality of divided custody with my son. On deployment, I feel like I've been spinning my wheels. That's where I say, can I get a hooah? And we're trying to get us all ready for this huge life change. And I feel alone in my thoughts, thinking that my children are going to be affected by this deployment. Don't know what to do. On overwhelmedness, yep, that's really a word. And if it's not 1 star and I made it up, so we'll put it in the dictionary online. And if it's online, it's true. It affects everyone in this era, from school teachers to churchgoers to neighbors. I mean, look at the person around you at the table. I bet you they've got something in their life that they're feeling a little overwhelmed by. It is simply difficult to get people to care, to check in.
Outside their bubble.
They might be treading water inside their bubble of their own, or they're compassion fatigued. And yesterday we heard charity fatigue.
That was the first time.
They're just like, look, I got too many things to take care of myself. I don't have time to try to take care of anybody else. And when we saw what used to be a couple of years ago, these large amounts of support and funding, we are now seeing relatively empty pockets and lack of support. And that right there is why it is so important that our neighborhood is connected as ever, that we are supporting ourselves and not relying on everyone else to support us.
All right, Patty told us we had to keep this light, and so we are not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, we're going to be happy now.
There are tremendous bright spots, and if you ask a military spouse, if you ask me, if you ask Tara, you will most always get the answer, I'm proud to be one. We enjoy the armed services for all the benefits and the experiences and the opportunities and the 1,000 other things that we love. And we live in a variety of countries. We get to experience different cultures. We have great benefits. We don't have to be insurance shopping right now, and so that's a really great plus. And so realizing the importance of those small joys and sometimes the bittersweetness of it all, those celebrations of a military family, and capitalizing on that positive force and those positive movers and shakers out there is a great way for your organization to become more effective. Things like pride and the strong marriages that Tara talked about, family and structure, security, adventure, and friendships.
Yeah. So you want to share some great examples that we've got out there of that? That Rubbermaid of the Year. Let's share those. Do we have those on?
Yeah, well, there are some great examples. They're not on the slide. You're right. I'm sorry. Let me stick to the script. So we have some great examples of organizations that are doing it well, just 3 of them. The Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year program, recognizing military spouses and their efforts, both male and female. The Association of the United States Army and Rubbermaid Volunteer Family of the Year program, giving a kudos out to families who are going the extra mile. And then, of course, Newman's own award for military excellence in military communities around the world. These are great benchmark programs for you all to check out.
So here's some more stuff from our readers, only it's positive this time. Yay! On family. Sure, I worry about deployments and separation, but my kids are resilient, and she is learning, my child, I should say, is resilient, and she is learning how families can stay connected and love each other despite their location. The challenges, handled with the right attitude, have taught us to be self-reliant, but also cooperation in order to get the job done. On deployment, it made us a stronger unit because we forced ourselves to communicate despite our separation. On friendship, and I love this one, in the military, our friends are our chosen family. I like chosen families. And on pride. Pride, absolutely nothing in the world like pride, because you know that your family is fighting for what the flag stands for, all wrapped up right there in red, white, and blue. It is when families have these concerns and these celebrations that we speak of that they are reaching out. And it's not always to ask us for help. Sometimes it's just to be excited about the fact that their soldier's coming home, or they've got this tremendous pride. And so we love to see those as well, but they definitely are reaching out in those times. We wholeheartedly believe, and you need to know this, that strong family readiness system is still our Army's and our units' bread and butter. They are the family's backyard. They are the official answer. They are the relied upon source for timely and accurate information, and that is why spouses and families reach to them or to their official support system first when they have a crisis. Unfortunately, though, as I said yesterday, the current military-approved model of an FRG is about fostering learning on the mission, and it's a lot of paperwork drills. And that's just me being honest, okay? It's not a lot about building relationships anymore. And so you have an issue as a family readiness group leader because all work, no fun. You know, Johnny's family, he's going to stay away because there's no play. Leaders are challenged with the need to be innovative in that box. You got to stay in your box of your rules, but you've got to be innovative and incorporate both aspects, even if you have to sneak that learning in, because you've got to get them out there to get to know each other. Between crises or after critical incidents, families are reaching out online. They're reaching out to that social because that is their friends. That's, I think, what we have to change our mindset, I should say, as an older generation. But that's where they go. They're unfortunately not walking next door as much as we used to. And they're asking them to interpret what happened to them. And it might be, well, at AWN we get a lot of, did this ever happen to you? Or this has happened, how did you deal with this? And so they want to know, did they deal with it well, or should they have done things differently? They want to know, should I cope with this, or is there a way to go solve this? And they want to know if they're normal.
We get that a lot.
You know, we talk about that a lot. Even in our exercises that we do for Army Wife Network, we talk about the normal factor. And it's so funny because we'll get our feedback forms back, and everybody will say, thank you for making me feel normal. Whatever normal is, right? We spend a lot of time doing that. And this graphic that we've got up here by Dr. Shelley Kimball's research, it's a great illustration of how we are all important and we are all relied upon to play those roles in our neighborhood structure. We all have to work together, though.
So where are they getting their information, and how are they staying connected to find this normal, besides Army Wife Network, that is? Many people have asked this question, and we remember it from one of our biggest challenges when we were talking about military spouses. They said the biggest problem is trying to find the right resource and getting connected and working out to where to get those resources. So listen, really helping military spouses is about reflecting on those times when you needed help most during your military career or just life in general. Do you remember just needing a friend, just needing someone to talk to, a mentor? Military spouses of this day and age are no different. They long for connection, that understanding, am I normal? And like Tara said, we don't really have a definition for that. We just know that we're walking alongside them in this journey. And they want some relief. And so these organizations have proven that they have the power to answer that call. And of course, it's not an exhaustive list of resources, but these are examples of proven leaders for various reasons. They are official and unofficial. They have a great track record. They meet not only the social, but the logistical and the financial needs of a military spouse or a military family. And our team uses them as military spouses, not just co-founders of Army Wife Network, but when we need help for our family and our challenges and our celebrations, this is where we go. And we refer to them as our network as well, and we're not afraid to say, hey, we don't know. You know, that is a challenge or a concern or a celebration that we have not had experience with, but we know someone who does, and that's our business. And we make sure that we know and that we're not afraid to refer instead of reinventing the wheel or signing up to do something that we're not going to do very well.
So I wish that I could have come here today and I could have told all of the FRG leaders, here's exactly what you need to do. And I wish that I could say, Star, that I had the perfect answer as to why people follow Army Wife Network. I honestly wish I could put that in a bottle and I would sell it right outside over here because I'd be rich. And then there'd be no need for us to even mess with any of this. Because wouldn't it be great if we knew exactly what made it work? And as soon as you figure it out, you know, it'll change. What I do know, though, is that they trust our opinions. We have similar lifestyles, we have similar interests, and our stories resonate with them. There is not a single thing that goes up on Army Wife Network that has not been vetted, that has not been used by one of the people that's on our core team, and there's 10 of us volunteers that work the team. We don't put up speculated things. We put up official information, and we wait, and sometimes it makes our fans mad. When the pay thing happens, they want to know, why is there not an official answer? Because we're waiting on the official answer. Because we don't want to cause panic. We want you to know the source that things come from, and so we wait, and that's what we do. Bill Cosby said, I don't know what the key to success is, but the key to failure is trying to please everyone. On our journey, we have many people ask us, why are you Army Wife Network? You should be Military Spouse Network. You should change your name to this. You should change your name to that. This is why we're Army Wife Network. Star, are you an Army Wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Me too. So is all of our team, right?
Yes.
That's right. We've always been Army Wives for Army Wives. We've never been Army Wives for Marine moms because they have their own site. So,
Not that we wouldn't welcome them.
We welcome everyone at Army Wife Network, and we share resources from everyone. There is not a competitor out there because everyone has a resource, and we will share all of them. Our goal is to get the info out there, and I think that that is why people follow us, because we don't show any prejudices or say, oh, we're not going to share that. As long as it's official information and it's nice and credited, it's going out. So I think that that's really what it has been. And we support, you know, everyone says, oh, the male spouses won't come over there. Come on over there. We got some awesome male spouses hanging out with us gals over there. So when we co-founded AWN, we knew we wanted to be one thing. And the root of our mission is to be grassroots. We wanted to make sure that in that what we meant was no one would come to us and not get a response. If they wrote us a question, if they asked something, they would get a response. That response might be, we don't know. We haven't had any experience with that. We need you to consult your official answer. I can't tell you how many times I typed that the last 3-4 weeks. You know, we do not have an official answer. Please ask your command. But that might be the answer they get. They know that when they ask something, we will answer. And I think that might be why they're there too. We make it easy for them to find information. We are not a, this is all the information we have about Army Wife Network, don't give us anything back. So please be careful as an organization that you are not an information pump, that you are a conversationalist. And we don't just talk about official information all the time. Sometimes we ask you what your favorite color is. So, you know, because sometimes you need a laugh or a little bit lighter note just to make it through this life. So this is timely, trusted, engaging conversation. And I think that really they find us, they see our value, and they recommend us to others, and that's why we've grown.
And I kind of call this the we have to know each other before we need each other factor. For example, like Tara said during the shutdown, they didn't have to try and figure out if Army Wife Network pumps out good information. They already knew that. You know, we do that on a regular basis, and so they knew exactly where to come, and they were at our door asking questions. Will we get paid? When will we get paid? You know, what about next payday? Mm-hmm. Will that be squared away as well? And so we share that official information. We are basically an open portal for people not only to connect with us, but to connect with the people that we know. And that lessens the degrees of separation of military spouses. Kevin Bacon, anyone? For military spouses, it's definitely a lot less than that 6 or 7, but we're closer to like a 3 or 4% mark. Or not percent, I'm sorry, 3 to 4
degrees.
mark.
Degrees.
Yes. One of Blue Star Family's social media recommendations is to cross-link important information on social media to reach the broadest possible audience, and we take that to heart. We do that through the referral and the sharing of the other organizations' trends and status updates as one of basically our public service to our network. Mm-hmm. And lastly, we moderate what other people are putting on our page, and we take action with offenders. It doesn't mean that you can't have an I Hate the Army Day. You can share that with you. We understand that there are challenges, but there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and if that's the 10 of us helping them to redirect their focus, then so be it.
We want to be a warm, welcoming, positive community where you can find information. In the end, we believe that the road is tough, but it is traversable, and the journey of a military family has inherent value that is measured in enriched life experiences, pride, and a sense of honor. All right, so listen, here's our message to you today. All our military families need are battle buddies. They need somebody there to empower them for the duration of their service. Those battle buddies, you guys, are you. And you're our neighbors, and so won't you be our neighbor? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go to a break.
Questions.
Questions. That's more important than breaking. I was just trying to break fast. That's my style. Tara will take all your questions today.
Do we have questions?
Do we have questions? We have one back here, I don't know, with the microphone. Thank you.
I'm Carl Monken with Army Public Affairs, and one of the things I do is work with the veteran military service organizations. I see Joyce over there. How you doing? I see a lot of people here. I'd just like to raise a hand, especially the women here that have actually had their spouse deploy and were part of a member of an FRG. And how often were you able to reach out to the military and service organizations like the American Legion, VFW, their women, their lady auxiliaries? Were they able to reach out to you? And was there an issue allowing them access? That was one question. Second question, when it came to your the connection, the problems, concerns, I saw on the bottom towards finance, what kind of tools are you able to give to them? Because I know a lot of times financial issues tend to be one of the things that causes a lot of the problems in marriage, especially if they're deployed soldiers, and helping them understand that. Those are my two questions. Thank you.
I have no idea, unless you want to answer. Second one? I'll take the first one.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So, Colonel, for the first question, I would encourage you to write me, and we'll put that question out to our Army Wife Network and find out, were they able to get a hold of the people that they need to get a hold of? I would be interested in the answer to that, too. And we've got about 63,000 fans over there. They're very vocal. They'll give you your answer. So I really, I didn't have any problems whenever I needed to access, but, you know, I don't know that I'm the typical military spouse. I would hope that if they came to Army Wife Network and asked us, that I know that we would be able to connect to those for them. So.
I can tell from the Guard's perspective, when my soldier was deployed, they were very active in our local community and would either, you know, sponsor the food at our FRGs and various things like that. Partly because they're reputable and they're known. I can tell you, when we started this, you know, Operation Homefront was already out on the landscape, and we knew in their performance track record, but later on, like when Blue Star Family started, we were watching too. You know, are they going to perform? You know, what are they going to do? And so, you know, it's our job to know that when people write us, and I'll segue into the financial need question, you've got VFW unmet needs programs. You've got Operation Homefront that gives, you know, grants, and so, and AER loans. I'm actually part of the Military Spouse Fellowship that was put on by NMFA and FINRA, and going through my accreditation for financial counseling right now. So just having that program and using those military spouses that know about managing a budget while your soldier's deployed, and learning a little bit more about the technical side of running finances and dealing with financial emergencies is a big win. And so, yeah, finances are a mission readiness issue. I think people don't go to the financial counselors on post because they immediately think that that stuff is going to get back from command. But as long as the families are proactive, if you are proactive, most of that stuff stays out of the command's radar.
Yeah.
And you guys need to know that. And if you have issues, then there are people to talk to.
There are two resources I want to mention on Army Wife Network that would help a family with this. If they did not want to go on post and have someone help them, that would be my first recommendation if they came to me personally. They can write us anonymously at Field Problems is actually what we do. We field the problems from the field. And so they can write us, and we have our team of researchers go out. So we've got, well, on finances, because that's a popular topic, many, many resources that we can send back out to them. We also have a resource database under the Empower tab on ArmyWifeNetwork.com where they can just put in the search box finances
or money,
or money, and it will just list. And these resources are, it's collective. It is any resource that we know of, that we have interviewed, that we have had on our radio show. I mean, so there are all kinds of resources. They're official and unofficial, so that have been vetted. And so I would recommend that they do that if they want to be anonymous and don't want to go in and see someone on the installation. But ACS would be my first answer. You know, I'm a volunteer at heart on my installation, so.
Does that answer your question, sir? Okay. All right, next.
What else you got for us?
One way in the back
And there's one right here.
and one in the middle here. Thank you.
And you guys have got time, so.
Okay. As a well-traveled spouse, okay, I'm new to the whole social networking thing. My kids are experts. It's amazing to me, and continue to see it, where these millennial, well-connected, constantly on their phones and apps, their biggest concerns are still loneliness and overwhelmed by the information that they're tapping into constantly. Why is that in your, because you have a lot of surveys and stuff, why is that, and how important is still the personal contact from the unit level and our community level? Are they reacting to personal contacts?
Okay, well, you know what? You can't underestimate this, right? This hug, this I need you. Stars quote, you have to know people before you need them, and sometimes you don't know what you need, and then if you don't have anybody to reach out to. I love social media. Please don't take this the wrong way. I cannot stand people who cannot look up from their phone. That drives me crazy. Stop being connected to those 4 people you know, and there's a whole room full of people out here we could meet, you know. So you're right. You can't underestimate that. One group has to realize there's a whole bunch of value in social media. The other group has to realize there's a whole bunch of value in networking in person. I mean, and we've got to find a connection somehow there. I would hope that they are using social media to connect themselves to those in-person events, and that's why we do both at Army Wife Network. So we know that social media is the way to get people connected to those resources. We know, but they're going to have to step outside of their box to be able to utilize them. And I just hope that we encourage them to do that when they write us and if they meet someone online. And we have many success stories of, I met my battle buddy here online on Army Wife Network because we shared this in common, and then we met in person offline. I hope that's what they're doing.
So you do need both, and I hope the audience hears that. And I know we had a question in the back, and I have one while that one gets situated. This is from the San Marcos Recruiting Company. What advice can you give a recruiter spouse who is living geographically dispersed? And as a National Guard spouse, I went from being an active duty family when I was active duty to not a military unfriendly town, but a military unfamiliar town. And Tara and I have a couple different ways of dealing with this. One of the biggest things for me moving to a new town while the National Guard was deploying was to identify myself as a military spouse with one signature, maybe a conversation starter, a unit T-shirt, a camouflage bag.
A giant yellow bow in your hair.
A giant,
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Some things like that to just, not camouflage yourself. I know that there, people fall prey to predators, and you don't want to overtly put yourself out there as a security risk, but you need to be able to, say, this is what my soldier's doing, and this is how I'm coping, or this is where I need help with. Getting connected with your church, that was, usually my second answer, as opposed, well, my first answer, really. Army Wife Network has always been in my back pocket. And also, as a recruiter spouse, check out the National Guard units near you. There are other military spouses. I know we took a small poll yesterday in the family forum about who's who's affected by a military member, who is impacted some way by the military. And it is really almost, 1% is serving, 99% are impacted by those people who are serving. So you just have to put yourself out there and ask, do you know anybody in the military? Do you know any military supportive groups? We were just talking about VFW and the American Legion. There are auxiliaries for spouses that you don't just have to be a service member to be involved in those organizations. And then ask online, what do you have in my area? Where, what's in Herndon, Virginia?
You might do a Facebook post. Here's an example. Kevin just took, that's my husband, just took a FEMA assignment in Denton, Texas. We've always lived near or on an installation. And when I got there, I was dumbfounded because I'm a volunteer. Where's my ACS and my MWR? I really had a moment adjusting until I realized that our community has a spouses club, and they do pretty much the same thing as a spouses club on a military installation does. And our community has events and a Parks and Recreations department that does pretty much the same kind of stuff that MWR does. So you may not get that military connection right there, but you'll have some of those additional services in those communities. You may have to search outside for that military connection. I went on Facebook and found DFW girlfriends and wives, and there are different military service members all over. They're not all Army, but they have a way to connect. So there's groups out there. You just have to do a little bit more looking.
Well, and to further that, the more people you know, then you lessen those degrees of separation. And you're going to find a military mom or a sister or a cousin of someone who's in the military that cares. We have one more question in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you first of all for what you guys are doing. I wish that this would have been available earlier on in my marriage.
Yes, ma'am.
My husband just retired from the Air Force after 20 years, so we're going through a different kind of transition. Luckily for me, my job allows me to stay connected to the military families. And what we do, and I appreciate what you said about we have to meet people before we can actually reach them. So our organization, the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, has partnered with AmeriCorps to use that grassroots community efforts to reach out to military families by using either military spouses or veterans as AmeriCorps members to do that. So the number one question that I get from our 82 coalitions in the field is this. We want to support our military. We even have some veterans and military families in our coalitions, but how do we get more people interested in getting off of their base or getting off of their post and really becoming part of the community that they're living in?
What kind of fun stuff are you doing?
They're doing like family days, parents' night outs, things like that. I think one of the problems is that they're not doing a lot of good social media outreach. We've already addressed that issue. But what are other ways that we can get people interested?
Well, you can connect with them where they're already at. And so that's why I went back to this slide. And, these are organizations where spouses are already converging, and start a conversation there, see what their needs are, and see if you can meet them locally. I actually was back in my hotel room last night thinking about one of the gentlemen that had a question yesterday about faith-based organizations and how come they're not able to find the soldiers and their families. That's where they're at, right there. And then you start pumping out the information of we're getting together. I mean, meetups.com exists for a reason. People do want that social connection, and they want to be able to do, but they want to learn but want to have fun too. So you already identified what you need to do, and that's increase your social media and then have a little more fun. And so I know it's hard to translate that into activities, but these are great organizations that are doing that, and you just need to learn how to follow the benchmark programs.
And don't ever underestimate the ability of those people who are already military talking to people who are military.
Right.
Because they see it as you are normal, you are me, and not somebody's trying to sell me something.
Well, and Tara and I, when we started, we have one more question, but we were happy with being able to engage with one spouse. So celebrate that one spouse and that one military family that you're helping, and the rest will follow.
Okay, so I think this is our last question, right, Ms. Patty? All right. The theme, and this is a great question, if I do say so myself, the theme this year is trust, and many trust Army Wife Network as it has a lot of credibility. And that almost makes me cry because it really was just a project. With success at hand, what is the next step for Army Wife Network? What are our future goals? Are you a nonprofit? And do you have paid advertising? Who did I pay to write this question?
info@ArmyWifeNetwork. That's our email, just so you guys know.
Yes, we are not a nonprofit, and I don't think that we really ever will be. Don't quote me on that. It's on camera now. Because we know too many good nonprofits that can help people, and we really just want to be that information and resource conduit to get you to who can help you. It's never really been our goal. We just wanted to be the connector. We wanted to give all of you who are out there doing such great work the people that you're trying to get to. And so yes, we do offer paid advertising, and we'd love your support. We have just been really lucky in having a really good core group of supporters and sponsors out there that are well-known names in the military community. Made some great friends out there, and they've been really good to AWN. I don't know what our next steps are. This one's going to retire on me, and so I've got a great team of 10 core volunteers, and we're going to rock it in 2014, but I don't know what we're up to, so we're not going anywhere if that's what you're asking. We are currently gaining over 1,200 fans a week, and so I'm not really sure. It's just gotten so big, it's scary in a good way, but I think, I don't know, good stuff will be on our horizon. So I'm open for partnerships. How about that?
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
for
so
being
with that
here.
was the break, and at 10:15 we'll be back to interview our panelists. Thank you for listening.
Yay! Everybody's having so much fun. I just really just like making everyone stop networking. It's my favorite thing to do. In addition to our keynote and Q&A that we just completed, we're going to facilitate this next panel discussion from now until 11:50. Our panel is full of many experts with so much valuable information that we have to share that we hope we can get it all squeezed in here.
We decided to do something a little different with our facilitation, and so I don't know if you guys are familiar. We did talk about Army Wife Talk Radio, but we just kind of jump right into things and ask questions ourselves. So that's what we'll be doing today. Normally panelists get to talk about themselves and then take questions, but as military spouses, we've already discussed with everybody. There will be no zingers, hopefully. We've already discussed what we would like them to ask up front and put their bottom line up front. There's a lot of great organizations represented here with a wide array of voices, and you'll see in a moment when we talk about their bios how really diverse they are.
So on our panel today, we have Joyce Razor from National Military Family Association, Stephen Judd from Military Family Learning Network, Brittany Brown of the Army Social Media Team, Megan Zemke, an FRG leader at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Kathy Roth-Doquette of Blue Star Families.
I know all of their bios for sure were put online at the AUSA Family Programs Facebook page and in your programs as well, but we're going to just give you a little blurb about each of them. Joyce Razor is the Executive Director of National Military Family Association, and she has served in various volunteer and paid positions, supporting the association's work to enhance the quality of life and the military family since 1995. She's also a military spouse, and that's just what we do.
And she's such a sweetheart. Steve Judd is the Manager of Information Technology and Distance Education for the University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension, and the chair of the Extension Network Literacy Community of Practice, a team within that Military Family Learning Network.
That's code for NetLit, Network Literacy, just so you guys know. And Brittany Brown is a U.S. Army social media strategist for the online and social media team of the U.S. Army, Office of the Chief of Public Affairs. In her tenure at the Norfolk District Army Corps, Ms. Brown spearheaded an award-winning social media program. So she's here with us today.
Megan is an FRG leader at Fort Polk who recently medically retired as a captain in the Army Medical Service Corps, and she's also an Army spouse.
And last but not least, down at the end is Kathy Roth-Doquette, is the CEO of Blue Star Families. She's a practicing attorney and author of AWOL, The Unexcused Absence of America's Upper Classes from Military Service and How It Hurts Our Country.
So we're going to get right into things just like we do on our radio show and start to grill. Just kidding. Ms. Joyce, you're up first. So what we want to know is, why did NMFA choose to go mobile, and why would other organizations want to follow suit?
Well, we went mobile for the simple reason that every one of us military spouses doesn't get too far away from this thing. There was a bank robber once who was asked why he robs banks, and he said because that's where the money is. We went mobile because that's where military spouses are. And so we've developed our My Military Life app, smartphone app to connect military families with resources when they need them and where they can find them. And we went mobile with that idea. We're connectors, as many of us are in this room. But we kept hearing that despite all the resources and all the organizations, both government and nonprofit, who were there to support military families and who had wonderful programs, we were still hearing what Star and Tara talked about. The military families were falling through the cracks. They didn't find what they needed when they needed it. And so we said, that sounds like an app. And we did our research and saw the numbers where military spouses were using apps on their phone, and we said that's where we need to be. That's why we went mobile. We would hope that all organizations are looking at the best ways to connect with the military families they serve, but it may not be an app. And we spent a lot of research and work in building our app, and it is a resource for all of you to use. If you have a good resource you'd like for us to push out, and getting that information out fast to military spouses is the most important thing, talk to us. We'd love to be able to share your information via our app. We've just recently went out to some organizations that offer scholarships for military spouses and said, tell us what you need, what you are doing for military spouses so that we can include that on our app. We've even pushed out information when one of the organization's application period opens so that more military spouses would be aware of that opportunity.
Right, so that's one good example. I talked about Steve and how he is NetLit, network literacy. I don't know if you guys understand, it used to be a good thing to have the power of choice, and then at some point we got to the point where there were too many things to choose from. And so I'm going to ask Steve, with so many social networks out there, which one should I choose, both as a business but also as an individual? Are we supposed to be at the same place, or are there different venues for different purposes?
Thanks. It really is hard today because, as we heard earlier, different generations see different social networks as their favorites, if you will. So I have young sons, and they're not even interested in getting on Facebook. They're doing Instagram or Snapchat or some other network with their friends. But as Colonel Rosenberg said, it's about the people. This is, we're talking about different technologies, but it really comes down to the people and who it is you're trying to connect with. So as an individual, I am going to tend to use the network where the people that I want to stay connected to are. So oftentimes that's going to be Facebook. It's the big gorilla in the room, and so it's one that can't be ignored. However, if all of my friends and the people that I'm trying to connect with are all on Twitter, chances are I'm going to find my way there. What this means for organizations and businesses is that you kind of have to be everywhere, or at least have your toe in the water everywhere to see what's going on, and be agile and figure out where are people moving to. Snapchat didn't exist 2 years ago. Twitter, just came on the scene, 6, 7 years ago. So all of these things are going to change. Facebook right now is the, as I said, the gorilla in the room that you kind of have to be on. But there are networks coming on like Google+. There are other networks that are coming on that I probably have never heard of. There are probably a good number of folks that are using sites like Pinterest that have maybe more of a niche focus. But if that's where people are, if that's where the information that you're interested in lives, that's where you're going to tend to congregate. If you are responsible for a family readiness group or you're responsible for a garrison command, you need to focus probably and say this is where our primary channel of communication is, but you also need to retain that flexibility to say, you know what we're seeing is that our young soldiers, they don't want to be on Facebook. It's too heavy, right? That's what I hear from people. It's too heavyweight. There's so much stuff. Twitter's easy. I can do it from my phone. It's short. It just goes out there. Maybe you need to be looking at that to communicate with the next generation of soldiers coming on and their families.
So, Stephen, that reminds me of the other day, I noticed that Army Wife Network is Facebook. That's where our following is. We have a good Twitter following. We have a nice Pinterest following, but Facebook is our bread and butter. But we were out looking at comparable Facebook, so we can put them up on our list here for you. And we noticed that we had, I'm honest, we noticed that there was another military site that had not a very big Facebook following, but a huge Twitter following. And we thought, well, why is that? So we had to go, we had to investigate a little. So it really depends on what your business is too, and how it's even structured. So it's absolutely true that you need to kind of put your foot in everywhere and then decide where you need to be. Many people worry, and this one's for you again, Steve, that everything that they share on social media is public. Is it or isn't it? And then a second part to that question is, what do you recommend for social media privacy settings for soldiers' loved ones?
So folks might argue with you and say, no, some of this stuff is private because it's a direct message or a private message or anything else. I still try and live by that rule that I don't really want to put anything online that I wouldn't at least survive my mother seeing. I might be a little bit embarrassed, but I'd like to still be invited home for Thanksgiving dinner, that kind of thing. So within different social media tools, there are different levels. So a site like Twitter, which we talked about, essentially everything's public. When you tweet, it's public. They have something called a direct message in Twitter that is supposed to just go more like a text message between you and one other person. At the same time, I would advise people to realize that once you've shared information, even if it's with one other person, you no longer control how it's used. Okay? So even if I tell my wife something, I have pretty good confidence that she's not going to share something that would embarrass me. But it's not up to me anymore. Now it's up to her. So once you've decided to share something, you just need to be aware of that. I still share an awful lot of stuff. On sites like Facebook, you really need to get comfortable with using some of the tools within Facebook that allow you to share not publicly, but just with a certain group of people or list of people. The more people you share with, the more places that there can be, what do they say in the military? Information leakage, right?
Communication.
And miscommunication, yeah.
And when that information comes out, it's not in the context you shared it. So to me, it's a lot about embarrassment and avoiding that and just understanding that you want to share appropriately.
I know. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say one more thing is the component that comes in is also being secure, understanding that you have a responsibility to yourself to keep your social media profile somewhat secure, because you don't really want someone else to be able to take over your profile and tweet as you, Facebook as you. I don't know if folks have seen the scam where you'll get a Facebook message from someone who's your friend that's, oh, I'm over in London and I just got mugged and I'm trying to get home, but I need $1,262.33, and if you could just wire it to me, I'll get it back to you. And people see it, and it's Facebook, it's my friend, here's their picture, they're in trouble, what should I do? So there are certain little tricks that you need to do. You need to make sure you have a good password. And most of these sites allow you to say, if I log on to my profile from a new device or a new computer, send me a text message and confirm that it's me. It happens once in a while when you're grab a new computer, you use a new browser, but it's worth that momentary bit of trouble to know that someone, even if they had your password, if they're in Russia, they're not going to be able to log on as you.
I can think of two military examples appropriate to that. Not only is it friends in London that are asking for money, but I have had two of my own family members that come to me and say, this doesn't sound legit, but there's a soldier over there asking for money so that he can give his commanders so he'll approve leave so that he can come home. Okay? If it smells like a fish, it's probably a fish. It's pretty fishy. But that's, members of my own family that are being taken, and that trust of military members is being preyed upon because they're thinking, well, he's a soldier, he says, it must be true. And so that's another example to further that illustration. And then as far as privacy, I know we have our own private page as far as the 10 of us that work for Army Wife Network, and when we tag or do the hashtags of, oh my gosh or whatever, and we hashtag it, and then does that end up on someone else's roll-up if they look to see who people are talking about? Oh my gosh, I've checked once in a while, and I'm not very sure that we need to be hashtagging.
Is that there's all kinds of crazy going on in those 10 groups.
And so I don't hashtag anything anymore. I'm sorry. So those are just two examples from the military spouse perspective.
Thanks for diming us out there,
Sister. You're welcome. I'm sure it's not just us. It's probably everybody out there. And then, so this is a follow-up question from Brittany from the social media team, because when we were asked to do this panel, Tara and I said, we've got to have that official answer. We need to ask Army if they can send a representative down to tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth as far as what is okay to share on social media.
And they sent us beautiful Brittany.
Yay! So her question is what items are okay to share on social media, and I'm sure you'll give us some examples of what is not okay.
Sure, most definitely. That's a great question. Now, whereas soldiers and their loved ones at one time used to write letters and make phone calls on landlines, if any of you remember those, they're now sharing messages on Facebook, they're chatting on Facebook, and they're calling each other on Skype. Now, as a member of the Army's social media team located at the Pentagon, one of the points that I definitely want to hit here and make sure that all of you are aware of is that social media is a great force multiplier when it comes to communications. It's a tool that's used not only by the U.S. Army, big Army, but it's also a tool that's being used by Army senior leaders, such as the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Sergeant Major of the Army. So to me, that's really impactful because it means that the deeds are matching the words. We aren't just saying that social media is a great tool to use, but we have folks who are putting resources and manpower behind using these tools. Now, when it comes to using these social media tools, not only for soldiers and their loved ones, there is a long list of things that we don't want them to share, but there's also some things that we do want them to share. So I'll start with the positive first.
Start with the do's. We like do's.
Okay, so in terms of the things that we want soldiers and their loved ones to share, we definitely want them to share things such as patriotic messages, messages of support. If there is a soldier in your life who recently finished basic combat training or AIT, or they earned their first pair of jump wings, that's awesome. That's something you definitely want to share in your social media pages. Folks definitely are really prideful when it comes to the Army, their Army service, their loved one's service, and those can be messages of support related to their military occupational specialty. So if you're infantry and you're proud to be infantry, that's fine to share on Facebook. Beyond that, we want to make sure that people are putting out general information. And when I talk about general information, I'm meaning no specific locations. It's okay to say that your soldier is in Afghanistan, but we don't want you to put the specific province or the specific village that they may be operating in. And lastly, in terms of the things that it's okay to share on social media, I would definitely urge people to share official information from sites such as army.mil and defense.gov. Some of you who may visit the Army's official website, army.mil, may have seen a story that featured your soldier's unit or images of your soldier. But beyond that, we also have the DoD website. And the DoD website does something a little different than army.mil, because the DoD website actually posts news releases that announce casualties. They also announce upcoming rotation units that will be deployed. So those things, once they're announced in those official sites, it's okay to share on social media. We don't want to start any rumors or cause any anxiety by posting gossip on social media, things like, I heard they may be deploying, or I heard that they may be coming back soon. So those are the things we would ask folks to shy away from when posting on social media. Beyond the long list of don'ts that we do not want you to share on social media, those things can really range from weapon systems, talking about that new piece of equipment that you were able to train on, talking about medical personnel or lack thereof, talking about convoys, any type of troop movement, so deployments, redeployments, all of those things we definitely don't want people to share on social media. Now, don't take this as us wanting to limit someone's speech or maybe take away some liberties, because those are the very things that our men and women in uniform are fighting for. But we definitely want people to be sure that they are keeping Army operations and soldiers safe and secure by not posting those things on social media.
So Brittany, this is what I want you to do. Give me an example, this is not in the script, of, she's like, oh shoot, she told me she wouldn't do this. Give me an example of something to a military spouse, not a soldier, because they get training on this. Okay, so military spouse, give me an example of a post that I could put out today, right now on my page.
Okay, I'm really excited that my soldier just finished basic combat training.
Okay, now give me an example of one I should not.
I just found out that my soldier will be deploying to Afghanistan on November 1st.
Okay, so hopefully, especially our virtual audience, just saw, why that would be a violation of OPSEC. So tell us why that would be a violation.
That would be a violation of OPSEC because you're letting folks know that your soldier's deploying. So you're basically telling them that you will not have your soldier at home with you and your kids. That if you wouldn't put it up on a sign in your front yard, don't put it on social media. And also, you're giving an exact date as well
So
for
OPSEC and PERSEC,
yes.
Operational security as well as personal security.
Yes.
Because,
And one of the things that you brought up that I definitely want to talk on a little bit is training. We train our soldiers to deal with the most advanced weapon systems in the world. And some folks may be a little risk adverse in thinking social media, that Facebook stuff, that Twitter stuff, we don't want soldiers on it. But the same way we train them to use those weapon systems and we have the trust and confidence to go out and do great things on the battlefield, we can trust and train them to do the same thing on social media, to use those platforms in a good way, to use them being mindful of security, OPSEC, and all of those good things, and also to share those lessons learned and share those tips and best practices with their family members as well, so they know. And there's a trickle-down effect from the soldier to their families and even to their kids who are on all those sites, whether it's Snapchat or Twitter or Google Plus, and using all those platforms that the Army isn't using, but they're using. They have those security concerns in the back of their minds.
So that's speaking to individuals, and we know that FRGs want to be on Facebook as well. And so what kind of tips would you give to an FRG who wants to use Facebook as far as what they can and can't put out? I know a lot of people, a lot of FRG leaders or people who maybe have not had training said, well, we're in a private group. So we can say November 1st, or we can, say so-and-so is coming back earlier than other people. What do you say to that?
Well, one of the things I say to that is that I would challenge everyone when you post anything on social media to kind of give it the Army Times litmus test. Are you okay with it being printed on the front page of Army Times the next morning after you post it? Would your commanders be okay with that? Would your family members be okay with that? I know you talked about Thanksgiving dinner, but a lot of our soldiers, they know that their commanders probably will be reading Army Times, and there may be trickle-down effects for the things that they post. Now, when it comes to family readiness groups using social media, if there's one thing that I could share with them, I think it's the importance in having some type of rules of engagement on all of their social media pages. Now, if you visit the Army's Facebook page, it's facebook.com/US Army, and you go to our About section, you'll see a long list of things where we're establishing our right and left limits in terms of what people can post. So we want to keep our page family friendly. We want to make sure there are no personal attacks, there are no bad language, that people aren't talking about ongoing investigations, that they aren't saying bad things about other people, being really vindictive. And that's something that I think family readiness groups can really find beneficial in terms of creating that community and having that self-policing community where people can feel like, I'm comfortable talking here because I know I won't be attacked. I know people won't say mean things to me. And that's something that you can now do not only on Facebook, but they can post it on their blog, they can post it on their Twitter page, and that kind of sets the stage for the community that will grow on those respective social media sites.
Thank you.
Yes, that's good information. Sorry I got you off track there, but I hope that was a good example for everybody. So Megan, an FRG leader, this is I'm sure that you get lots of questions when it comes to social media. How do you balance what an FRG does versus what it doesn't do? And do you feel that spouses expect more from their FRGs?
Well, I think that the balance is a good question, and it's a lot trickier with the social media now. and versus that we're slowing down deployments. I think it was a lot more apparent what you were supposed to do when you have a deployed unit versus a unit at home, because when your unit's deployed, spouses are looking for that family. They're looking for that group that they can join to say, okay, well, we're all in this together. We're all together in this, and we're all going to, help each other out through this. And I think the expectation there is more so just help me get through this. And that's where you have to be very careful, I think, on the social media aspect, to make sure you're not saying, okay, I think the boys are coming home now, or I think we can expect that they might be a little later or anything like that. That's when you want to be very careful. What our challenge has been as a non-deployed unit has been spouses kind of expecting, well, now that we're home, I need someone to help me move, or I need to, where are we allowed to borrow money from, and those kinds of things. And that's not what an FRG does, but the way I see myself is I'm kind of their first line into the military for a lot of those spouses, and they don't really know where else to go, and their husband's like, well, why don't you ask the FRG leader? Isn't that what she's there for? And so they do, and I say, well, I know that you can go to Military One Source, or you can go to ACS, or, I personally cannot help you, move some things, but I'm sure that we can find some people that are willing to, go on a Saturday for pizza or whatever, and kind of back and forth between that. But we did find that the biggest challenge we have is that once your soldier's home and he's not deployed, they don't really want to hang out with you. They want to hang out with their soldier. And so we're kind of saying, well, no, we still want you here, and we still want to be kind of a unit family. And they say, but why? My soldier's home now. And that's where we kind of brought in our Facebook feed to say, we're doing these fun activities. We still want to have a family unit, togetherness and cohesion. So I think those are kind of our challenges.
And we were going to ask about that. When the deployments are over, they're slowing down. People ask, why do we need to be still plugged into our FRG? I will tell you that is a conversation that we've been having in the Guard for a decade. And that is where that phrase comes. You have to know each other before you need each other, and that is the why you have to be engaged, even not during deployment. So even if it's a quarterly meeting or a bowling party, or just a meeting to say this is what's in our future, because people do want to know what the 18-month or the 24-month plan is, and you sneak that learning in. So that was a good example as far as what to expect from your FRG during that future. You want to go to 7?
9. All right, so this one is for Kathy, all the way down there at the end. When Tara and I did our presentation, we talked about the general social media usages from BSF Lifestyle Survey. But I want to know, how does it change with the current op-tempo of deployment? Does that increase usage of social media, and if so, how? And what else did you guys find out in that survey?
Sure. First of all, for you two, you did a great job in the presentation. It was really interesting and terrific, so I appreciate that. It definitely does increase. Military families right now are very dependent on Facebook. Almost all military families use Facebook to a significantly greater degree than civilians do. So I think that's important to know. 96% of military families use Facebook. Crazy and high number. 67% of civilians do. So we use that statistic when talking to units often to encourage those who are uncomfortable about using Facebook, that this is where people are. I completely agree with the other panelists that this is a moving target. My husband's was a pitcher in baseball, and my son's is an ice hockey player. And this is not baseball. You're not throwing a pitch over the base. You're trying to pass to where the puck is going to be. And we don't know where the puck is going. We have to really stay alert to see where that puck is going to be. So it requires a bit of a mind change, especially for the services, to keep that in mind. Everyone's on Facebook right now. You got to be on Facebook, but that doesn't mean next year that's where everyone's going to be. So you have to stay very alert to where those places will be in the future. Along the lines of how to use Facebook and operational security, Blue Star Families and Facebook, together with DoD, put out a handbook for military families on social media use. we encourage this to be a resource that everyone uses. It is a free resource, and it kind of lays everything out for everyone. You can find it on our website or on Facebook, Blue Star Families, just Google. And I think that's a useful resource, too.
So, we've got some questions. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Already?
I know, that's awesome. So we're going to ping pong back between Blue Star Families, who's advising people how to use social media, and then the FRG leader, who is actually trying to use social media. You alluded already to it kind of, people are, I can't find the right word, that doesn't sound, they're running away because deployments are over, and so now they're not there. So how are you creating that buzz that you talked about? What are some good examples, Megan, of keeping them engaged?
Well, free food always helps.
Free food always helps. You heard all that.
You heard it from her. There's always kind of a core that's always going to go towards you. We've been lucky enough to have a great FRG co-leader, a wonderful secretary, those kind of people that are always going to come towards you. And I've kind of asked them to kind of be my buzz feeders and go, be the hey, we're actually on Facebook, and you can join our Facebook page and kind of see what's going on, and asking them, well, what kind of things are they interested in? Thank you. What kind of things are they interested in? What kind of things do they want to do? And what we found out is that, if we try to have just your average meeting with maybe like some cookies or something, no one's going to come. But if we have, if we instead focused our efforts to having a big quarterly meeting with a bounce house and kind of fundraising towards that, then we would get most everybody there, and that's when we could put out our information. So that's what we used our social media for. One, because I was kind of sick of asking my husband, did you remember to put out that there's an FRG meeting this weekend? And he's looking at me with a 1,000-yard stare. That way I could kind of be proactive in it and say, okay, we're going to put out that we're going to have this activity next month, and there's going to be these types of things for the kids to do, and if you'd like to bring food, that would be great, or there's already going to be food there. And that's where we made our bread and butter, with putting information out. And we recently went through a deactivation. My husband's unit was one of the first to be deactivated on Fort Polk, and so that was huge for us for rumor control, just to kind of get everybody together and say, it's okay, it's going to be all right, here's what's going to happen.
One of the things that I was thinking about while you were talking was, your soldier might not be deployed, but chances are someone else they know is deployed. And so the spouses that may have just went through something, or the families, maybe mentoring or pairing them up with a unit that's deployed, it still keeps them engaged, and they can share their lessons learned.
And that's a very good point, because even on any installation, there's usually one unit that's on and one that's off, and you can kind of partner up with them.
And I know we talked about the challenges of running an FRG while your soldier's deployed. I mean, we're mill spouses too, trying to deal with our finances and kids. So if you have a buddy mill spouse organization or a buddy FRG, you guys can kind of pair up. You heard it here first.
Kathy, let's go back to you, back to that survey, because I do like that survey. In regards to social media, how has family engagement changed over the years? I found this very, very interesting research here. And how does that demonstrate that people are adapting to current technologies? What do you think is going to be next?
Right.
Look at your crystal ball.
Loaded questions for Kathy.
Right. People are adapting to it. If you look at the different ages, as you mentioned in your presentation, older ages are using it far less than the younger ages. So as the force ages, we're going to see that more and more. And they're using it in all kinds of ways. We allow people to give open-ended responses to our questions, and we hear things from parents, like just seeing that the green light is on is tremendously reassuring for them on Facebook. If you're logged onto Facebook, you see a green light that someone's logged on. That's a fantastic connector during deployment. It doesn't require the burden of an interchange or timeline, but it lets you know the person's okay. One Wounded Warrior spouse told us that she belongs to 20 Wounded Warrior Wives groups on Facebook, and the help she gets from those groups has saved my life, saved her family from homelessness, and saved her sanity. So I think those are so significant that we have to realize how important they are. Looking forward, yes, right now Instagram is huge. Twitter is trending very high, but all of these things are going to continue to change. Vimeo, here's one thing we're seeing, and I think it's important for how we all deliver our messages. What matters is not what we want to tell people and how we want to tell them. What matters is what information they want to get and how they want to get it. And what we are finding now is that people hate written communication. They're interested in visuals, in pictures, but more and more what they're wanting is video. And that does put a burden on all of us because we have to get more sophisticated in the way we present information. You have to not just have a picture, you have to have an infographic. You have to not just, but video can be very real. And in all of these things, we need to partner with each other. The government or the FRGs need to partner with the nonprofits. We can provide you with resources and support so you don't, as the budgets are going down, we can fit up with, we can make the difference. We can bring Blue Star Families Books on Bases to your FRG event, and that's an attraction. The kids, they're going to get a free book for their kid. Many of our chapter directors are also FRG leaders, and bring them in to talk about Operation Purple camps or things that the other groups are doing, and that our groups need to, as Joyce was saying, share that information with each other, and as Army Network does as well, share that information, because no one group is going to find all the people in any one place. Right. It's going to be many of us at many places to get this mosaic.
I want to say that even with our 63,000 fans, I mean, that's like under 10% of military spouses. Mm-hmm. So, right. I mean, we can celebrate that, but then on the other hand, there's a lot of work to be done.
And that's only the active duty. Then we also have the Guard and Reserve. So, you're right.
Yes, ma'am, I hear you. This question is for Joyce. And so when we were talking about the future of social media or even just mobile media, they have the My Military Life app. You started to talk about that, but we wanted to know exactly how it works and what it does.
Sure, and I want to give a shout out to Amanda Anderson, who's in the room. Amanda works on our app team, so if you have questions about our app, we have these little cards that tell you how to download the app, and suggestions, Amanda can answer those questions, and our app works basically, we will share information with you. Basically, we've asked the frequently asked questions that you ask about military life. And we, as military spouses, designed this app to get at those frequently asked questions, organized in terms of various life paths, raising kids, spouse education, spouse employment, military basics for those folks new to the military, moving, getting ready to launch a section on caregivers. So it's in those particular life paths, there are the frequently asked questions that then link you to resources. The neat thing about the app is if you tell us a little bit of information about you, we can customize that information. So what service are you? What rank is your service member? Because there are certain programs that are only open to certain services or available only to families of service members of a certain rank. A great example of that would be the MyCAA, the My Career Advancement. So if you are an E6 spouse looking for resources on spouse education and you've told us that information, we're not going to show you the MyCAA because you're not eligible for it. If you're an E3, you're going to get that information. So trying to customize it based on your needs, do you have kids? How old are they? Where are you in a deployment? So there's a lot of general information if you don't want to tell us anything, but the more you tell us through the app, the more we can customize it. We've started out in terms of the resources available in the app by presenting most of the government resources. There are a lot of things that the Army, the Department of Defense, all the other services are doing for military families that military families don't know about. And if military families aren't using them, they're going to go away in some of the tight budget issues that we have. So, but we also have branched out from the government resources to programs offered by other nonprofits, some of the trusted organizations that we've worked with over the years. I mentioned the other organizations that do scholarships, for example. Really excited, our next feature that will launch by the end of this month will give military spouses the the opportunity to rate those resources that we've presented with the little star ratings, and provide comments. Because ultimately, we're going to allow military spouses to suggest resources. You know, okay, National Military Family Association, you've said this is a great child care resource in this community. Well, we know of this one. And so to get that information from the community, we've talked a little bit about the risk and all in social media, but you know, crowdsourcing is what is out there. And the lucky thing for us in a military community is our crowd is really good at policing itself and policing the community and chiming in when somebody says this is a great resource. Others will chime in and say, yes it is, I've used it and here's the experience, or here's what happened to me. But all of that information is very valuable for program providers, for us as a connector for military families, and for other military families. So coming on the horizon will be more opportunities for military spouses to actually suggest resources that we can then check out and add to the app. So get your little card, download the app, talk to Amanda if you have questions, and yeah, Amanda's got them. So
well, I have another question in relation
Sure.
to the app. Well, first I want to tell you guys that I know this has never happened in the history of forums, so we have all kinds of time for you to answer questions or ask questions. So if you are on the other end out there in the virtual community, make sure you're sending them in. We're getting them up here, and we have all kinds of time for you. So send away, and you guys get ready to ask yours in here. I don't want to miss an opportunity to promote that we also have an app for AWN. How could I not say that?
There's an app for that.
Okay, so there is an app for that, and you can stay connected 24/7. So if you can go find that on our website or download it off your phone. But when you came to creating your app, and this is why I have this question for you, we had a hard time because we thought, well, okay, what are we going to put on this app? And it sounds to me like you are going to customize the experience for each person. And then how are you going to decide, because there's a lot, it's not just NMFA stuff in there.
Right.
It's all kinds of different resources. How did you vet them and decide what was going to go in there?
Well, and that's why we started with the government resources.
Okay.
Because we as taxpayers are paying for those resources. They've been put in place to help by our government, whether it's Army, DOD, Coast Guard, other services, to help our military families. So that's why we started with those resources. We are now broadening to reach out to some of our trusted partners. We've been working with other organizations for almost 45 years, and so we know a lot of the players in the space, and we know what programs they're offering. They've come to us and said, can you put a link to this on your website, or can you talk about this? And we like to do that because we want to connect military families with the right resources. So starting with government, then moving to some of our good close friends, organizations that we know and work with. And then the next step is the branching out to military families to get their perspective on what works and what doesn't work and what they're using that military community crowd. We're really excited. We will be adding the ability to verify a spouse status so that community really is closed. It's military spouses communicating with other military spouses, because we don't want those predators in saying, oh, try this in this community, and then taking advantage of our families. So we're moving slowly because we want to get that vetting right. And so great question, and I think that's important. When we're doing something like this is to get the information right, but then also really reach out to our community to say, did we get it right? And that's what we want to hear.
All right, so back to Kathy, and we talked about deployments and how families, deployments are slowing down, but there are a myriad of other challenges. I think you saw that in our presentation earlier. And so, Kathy, I was going to ask you specifically how social media can help folks with reintegration and caregiving, and then the big employment question mark.
Thanks. I really appreciate that question. In our annual survey, which gets released in Congress every year, and by the way, it's going to open up again for comments. Most of the groups on this panel are partners in getting the survey out.
We're pushers.
Right. Encourage folks to fill out the survey in January when it comes out. But top top issue of concern for military families are financial issues right now. And key among them for these families are spouse employment. 26% of military spouses are unemployed, as you know. I don't know if you're aware that virtually no other demographic in America outside of felons has an unemployment rate that high. And what that suggests is that we have this group that's more educated and more credentialed than their civilian counterparts, but they're experiencing something which, under Chamber of Commerce recent study, shows as 90% of families say that's their number one stressor after a move, is employment issues for the spouse.
And that ties into money issues, too. I know we were talking about that before.
Most families in America need two incomes to provide their families with the kind of opportunities that they feel they need. So I think this is an issue for concern. We think the solutions are online solutions and social network solutions, because there's only so much anyone can be on site where every military family member is through every move. So networks online, Blue Star Families has set up a number of networking sites for entrepreneurship, education, and healthcare, and we're going to be expanding to financial services and hospitality. We've partnered with Odesk, which is the world's largest online site for contractor jobs, to create Blue Star Jobs, a site where, much like the app, people can go online, put what their skills are, find contractor, move with them, can be less than full-time, which many people, because of caregiver needs, need. So these kinds of solutions, these kinds of online solutions are more and more, I think, ways we can actually deliver programming, not just information, but actually things that make a difference. Our reintegration toolkit, which is in partnership with the Defense Centers of Excellence, Paul Allen of Microsoft's Vulcan Group, and NBC Universal, is about before, during, and after deployment. But because transition issues with the downsizing of the forces are becoming more and more important, we are now added a whole new section on transition. This is a free resource available to anybody. Right now it's on the NBC Universal site, but will soon be on our site as well, and you can get to it through DCOE. But because it's online, and we can easily update it with more resources, with other organizations' resources, with government resources, and with what we're hearing from the field about what works and what doesn't. So social media, it gives us all tools that are very exciting. And same thing with our caregiver resources. Not all caregivers live near other caregivers, but to be able to provide peer mentoring, much like this one individual stated, we have a caregiver peer-to-peer program. Some other organizations are looking at that too. These, we want to bring people together to be in person, but their lives will be mostly enhanced by the online experience, because that comes to where people are. I agree with what you all were saying about deployment is a life cycle activity. We can't only plug in when we feel an acute need. We have to train everyone to think that even if it's just a little bit of contact, we got to keep going all the time. And if I could just make one suggestion, especially for FRG leaders here, when you have people sign up, ask them their preferred method of contact. Yes. Is it email? Many people are using email now. Our survey shows people don't want email so much anymore. So ask them, do you want to be contacted via email, via Facebook, via text message, or via Twitter? And then use that to communicate with them.
Good point.
So our friends out at 3 Corps at Fort Hood Family Programs, HUA, they read our script ahead of time, and they already had this question. No, I'm just kidding. They did send in a question. That is our last question. It's for Steve, and I'm going to ask it kind of a combination of the two, but it is almost identical. There's a lot out there. Our friends from Fort Drum this morning said exactly, with the commercial they talked about how, it's true. It was on the internet. There's a lot out there. Our neighborhood, it doesn't know any boundaries. I mean, that's just fact of the matter. So the title of this whole forum here was awesome. How do we know, and they say, how do you validate the accuracy of military information that is shared on these social media sites?
Or any information. How do we validate what we see online?
Right. I think, that statement, I saw it on the internet, so it's got to be true. There are people who believe that. I think one of the key components, and it's kind of what we've been talking about up here, is having that community, the network, the reliable partner that you can go to, so that you don't have to try to vet every single piece of information you ever come across. So just as an example, I might be sitting watching baseball with my kids and they say, who'd they just mention? Lou Brock? Who's he? And I'll be, oh, hold on. And I'll look it up online and I can get Lou Brock's record and when he played baseball and everything else. And that's good enough for me. I don't really need to go in and validate where that piece of information came from. I figure it's at least close enough for this little vignette of what's going on. But there is other information that we're relying on, that we're getting online, that's a lot more important than that, that has implications for us in our everyday lives. And so part of it is understanding that these organizations that are pointing you to resources are doing that vetting for you. You know, is it coming from Army.mil or is it coming from DoD? Can you trace back that path to where that information originally came from? The organization I work with is essentially a coalition of land-grant universities and their outreach arms across the country. And that's really what we were founded on over 100 years ago, was trying to get reliable, research-based, non-biased information to people. And now we call that curation. It's people, the experts in the field, or people that you just happen to trust because of the relationship you've developed with them, whether it's in person or online. People that you trust that point you in the direction of information that's reliable. You still have to, you know, smell the fish and make sure that it's not rotten. Some things can look pretty good. If it's too good to be true, you know, I can give you all sorts of aphorisms about how to beware. But I think really it's having trust in some groups that will share with you information that they've already vetted and that they know the source that it comes from.
And the common sense factor, does that exist?
It's pretty important.
So that actually concludes the formal portion of our morning, and we want to thank you guys for being up here. But we've tied them down to their chairs, and they can't leave anywhere, and that's because we've got you all tied up and ready for them to pick your brains. So what we're going to do is we've got quite a few questions from online. We're going to rotate between online and in the room. And so if that's okay with you guys, if you want to go ahead and identify who might have a question in the room, we'll go ahead and ask this online one, and then we'll take one from you. So this online one is for Brittany. And the question is, children of soldiers are on Facebook. Is there a specific, et cetera, because, you know, they're not all on Facebook. They're all over the place. Is there a specific site geared towards kids that would explain OPSEC to children? It's dreadful to think that a slip by someone's child might cause harm or start rumors.
Sure, most definitely. The Army social media team, we kind of operate like the centers of excellence for social media for the Army, because we realize not every unit has someone who's dedicated to doing social media. So part of our job is trying to do some of the education and training and background information and finding that for people and sharing it with the field. We have a site. It's called slideshare.net/US Army Social Media. Again, that's slideshare.net/US Army Social Media. And that site essentially exists as a one-stop shop for any and all information you need related to social media. Now, on that site, you'll see dozens and dozens of documents and presentations. And we have presentations that are specifically geared towards Army families so that they can train each other, so that they can train their children about the things that they should know about operations security and using social media in a safe way. So that's one of the resources that I definitely will point people to. We try to make sure that we are doing the research for people, pulling out the important bits of information, because as you mentioned, anyone can go to Google and kind of just search for something and find something, but is that trusted? So what we'll do is we'll go to some of the sites that are trusted to find those best practices, to find that information, and then we want to make sure that we're delivering it to people. So we'll post it online, we'll send it out via email, we'll send it to family readiness groups. And one thing that I also want to mention is that we aren't operating in a vacuum. We have partnerships with all of these great organizations that we're working with, nonprofit, but we're also working directly with these third-party service providers. So we have a great working relationships with the folks at DC, Facebook DC office, Google DC, LinkedIn, Skype, so on and so forth. So with all of those concerns, whether it's a child using social media or whether it's someone being impersonated on social media. We have all of those best practices and information on how to deal with that on that SlideShare site. And again, the address is slideshare.net/US Army social media.
Okay, so here yesterday is where I talk about personal responsibility. This is a resource, and it exists, but the conversation is going to have to be had with your children. And that's not something that the U.S. Army social media team can do. I'm sure that if you called them, Brittany would be happy to talk to your daughter. But what you have to do is you have to talk to your kids about this. And so they have to understand if they're going to be on these social media, that you need to sit down as a parent. It is your job to talk to them about the dangers of social media and what that might mean to your Army or military family.
And taking that one step further, too, also as a parent, you have that same parental responsibility in terms of whether or not you walk your child to the bus stop. The same thing you can do in terms of keeping them safeguarded and keeping them safe in terms of coming and going to school. You can do the same thing on social media and online. You can use some of those parental controls to limit and block certain sites and block their access and limit how much they're actually online and monitor what they're doing online as well. So definitely personal responsibility is definitely a good
Which also means
point.
you have to educate yourself on social media. Sorry, guys.
There are also some good resources on Military OneSource
Yeah.
and some DoD work that where kids can go to talk to other military kids, but so check out some of those resources on Military OneSource. I know our friends at the Military Child Education Coalition also is helping in their parent-to-parent programs and all helping with some of those issues. So check out the resources.
Yeah, that was an excellent question because I think we were so tied up in, what are we going to do with it that we forget that they're probably better than we are on it.
So this is another question. We're going to take one from the audience, if there's one out there. Time for questions? We have a microphone up front here.
Patty, aren't you proud? We have so much time for questions. Yay! I'm excited.
Thank you very much. This is an excellent discussion of a sometimes challenging issue for those of us over a certain age. I endorse and encourage the closed community blogging and chats at TAPS. We use that very successfully with different segments of surviving military families. I would just like to encourage, as Joyce is talking about, vetting the resources and those being done by MilFam. Please, you guys, don't forget the resources that are already collected by the government on the National Resource Directory. I'm a broken record. Thank you, guys.
No, that's a perfect segue to this next question from Fort Hood. Is there a list of civilian organizations that support the military community, and how would you access it? I would say the National Resource Directory. There used to be America Supports You, and now it's our military.mil. National Military Family Association's app has a resource database. Army Wife Network has a resource database. So those are some great sites right there where you can check and see. Also, the buyer beware caveat or whatever, we look on Charity Navigator or other websites like that to see how the nonprofits are performing, what their percentages are. And so we do that, and we also tell our spouses to be checking out Better Business Bureau for local businesses that are trying to provide services to military. And that's all part of that responsibility of just knowing who out there is doing the hard work for us, because we can't do it all.
And we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. Right.
Mm-hmm. And we have a question in the...
How do you access those resources with the legal constraints of not actually being able to ask?
I think
For
you're
instance,
talking in terms of FRG?
Yes,
rules.
a bouncy house, food for an FRG meeting, food for an FRG symposium, welcome home celebrations.
I would answer, but to be honest with you, I've not been an advisor for a few years. Megan, can you answer that?
I'm just a little confused by not being able to ask about.
For money. You have to fundraise.
Oh, right. Well, we fundraise, and that's how we make all of our money for things like parties and bounce houses and things. And you do have to be a little bit creative. The bake sales don't always generate the kind of money you need. We stepped outside of the box and found out that we were allowed to bag groceries at the commissary, just like I did when I was a kid, living on Fort Benning. You can go ahead and do that, and that's how we made a lot of our money in fundraising. But it has to be all towards something. You can't just fundraise and just have money in a pot.
you have to be saying, this is going specifically towards our welcome home party, or this is going specifically towards our deactivation party or our Christmas party. That's always the big rule. It always has to be your unit for your unit.
How do you access the resources
Um,
without fundraising?
MWR is a big proponent of FRGs on post. If I needed to go outside of that, I probably would start asking. ACS was always my first step for, okay, I'm not really sure where to go next. And they would either point me in the direction of, okay, well, the Military One Source might be able to help you, or I've heard of this, nonprofit that they can advise you on this type of thing. Or my next hire, my battalion commander's wife is my next hire FRG leader, and I would ask her, how can I get this type of support?
I can offer you a couple specific ideas. The VFW auxiliaries and the American Legion auxiliaries can often provide, are allowed to come on base. So there's a list of military support organizations that are allowed to come on base and provide help. So look at those. The USO is among them. Blue Star Families, with some of our programs, we can bring those resources there. You may have to wear two different hats. You may not be able to ask as your FRG, with your FRG leader hat on, but as your private citizen hat, or something like that. But you're not asking for the help, you're asking for the partnership, and they bring the help. It's the nonprofit that is bringing the help, not you.
I'm not sure we answered your question. Did we answer your question?
Okay, you need to talk. You're going to need to go refer specifically to your FRG and JAG if you have like a specific question like that. Is that what you mean? I think I'm confused on your question too, so I want to make sure. So if there's something you're wanting to access and you don't know if you're going to be able to do that with your funding, is that what you're asking?
Oh, JAG would know.
Yes, JAG would know the
know.
answer to that, or your unit commander would be able to tell you, or if you still have a FERSA, your FERSA in your unit should be able to tell you, yes, you will be able to purchase that with these funds, or that's why I didn't want to answer your question. The rules have changed since I was an advisor. I didn't want to answer wrong.
And sometimes JAG says the answer is no, and then you have to go back and say, okay, well, we can't do that.
And sometimes you have to be creative.
Right.
But yes, but there are a whole lot of organizations out there that can help you within that realm of the rules that are set.
And that's where MWR marketing,
Yeah.
like you were saying.
So I think that'll help. Okay, this question is for Megan. It's along the same lines of FRG. You know you're going to get a lot of those. I'm an FRG leader of a recruiting company. I'm wondering if there are some tools you have that you use for families to get involved. Our families are split over 60 miles. Our closest Army base is 3 hours away. How do we connect our families?
I would say social media is one of the best ways. And again, it doesn't have to be that you're going to do something every month or every quarter. Even if all you can do is say, hey, we're going to have our big yearly, the tri-state area FRG group is going to get together for a big holiday party or a big summer bash. That would probably be my first step, and I would continue to contact through social media, through Twitter, and kind of pan out to your spouses and say, what's your idea? How do you think we can best connect? And maybe you have little mini groups. If I were looking at D.C., Maryland, Virginia, which is kind of a big area, I would say, okay, well, let's have a little D.C. group that meets maybe twice a quarter, excuse me, and maybe a Virginia one and a Maryland one, and then every year we all get together and just stay in contact through those social media sites. That would be my advice.
I think for the social media panel, that's probably what we would say too. Social media does so well because of the geographically dispersed, and then they can connect and they can decide whether that next meeting is something they want to drive 4 hours for. I mean, that was a decision I had to make as a National Guard spouse. You might have to go to every other meeting, but to have the FRG leader maybe send out the minutes or an agenda too, that helps, and make sure that you're setting their expectations.
And I would say don't put too much stress on yourself. If all you can do is social media right now, and all you can do is say, hey, let's have a group chat up or a group tweet up, maybe that's all you're able to do. But if you do that often enough and people are like, hey, no, we really want to have that Christmas party, then there you go. I would
And
say
hey, you
start
can
small.
have, I mean, you can have a Christmas party virtually. The AWN team does it every Christmas. You get on Elfster, you trade gifts, you mail them out, you bake cookies, but you eat them while you talk to each other and you share recipes. I mean, there's ways to do this. You have Skype. You totally can make this. You just got to think outside the box.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Tom Bond. I'm Vice President for Monster Government Solutions, a subsidiary of Monster.com.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I'm checking to see if there is a national spouse employment site that you all work with in any way. That's probably something we could help with as
Many.
well.
You want to take that one, Joyce? Well, there are many, but the one that I usually send folks to first is the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. I think Monster is a partner, but MSEP, if you Google MSEP, you'll get to their portal. We need to work to get more spouses to know about that because the partners are posting more jobs on there. We're a partner, we post jobs on there. A lot of other groups in the room are. That our challenge has been with a lot of employers who think, well, we want to hire veterans, and it's the same thing as hiring veterans to hire a military spouse, and so that can lead to some issues. So what we like about the Military Spouse Employment Partners is that they've actually said, we know there's a difference between veterans and military spouses, and we want to hire military spouses. So that's the first place I go, but I have asked spouses to go because that is the portal created for military spouses. But I also encourage military spouses to use all the resources their civilian peers do. We're an MSEP partner, but frankly, the last 2 hires that we've done, we've found our candidates through LinkedIn. So I encourage military spouses to use LinkedIn and other sites like that because, and encourage employers to use those as well. So, but MSEP first.
I know a lot of people were nodding their head. I think that's the first go-to for sure. All right, so for Brittany, Miss Brittany, with more and more FRGs setting up FRG pages, what kind of guidance could you give for setting up the Facebook page? I know you talked about security, but maybe just in general, how do you go about putting your arms around those people and making and vetting that you've got the right people on that page?
One of the concerns that's come up a lot for our team is turnover. So I think it's really important at the onset to figure out exactly who will own this page and what the responsibilities will be. If you are interested in setting up a social media page for a family readiness group, just know that you're not alone, that you can do it with other people, and that you do not have to be online on your phone 24/7. You can unplug your phone and you can get some sleep. Because social media is 24/7, but if you have the right team of people and you have multiple people who are admins on your page, who have the ability to respond and comment, that helps lighten the burden in terms of managing that page and making sure that that conversation is still happening and that you are the go-to resource. Once you have that audience built up, what's great about it is that the folks will start answering each other. It will be a self-policing community. Someone will post a question asking for a resource, where's the best place to go for XYZ, and another spouse who's been in that area for a while will respond to them. So the admins don't have that responsibility. Now, in terms of some of the technical things, in terms of setting up the Facebook page, there's some considerations you want to take into keep in mind when you're setting up the page. If you look at the Army's Facebook page, we've disabled the ability for people to upload photos on our wall. Do you want to do that? Do you want to maybe put a filter block list to filter out certain 4-letter words on your page? All of those different things you can do on your Facebook page. And I would encourage all the admins just to, it's kind of cliche, but like Nike says, just do it. We have a social media handbook on that SlideShare page that I mentioned before with tips and best practices. But the easiest way to do it is to just do it, to play around the page, to go to that button that says Edit Page, and choose the settings that work best for you.
So do you suggest a page or a group?
I would honestly suggest a page.
A page.
A page, a
And
public-facing page.
And just a note on what you said, sometimes they will police themselves and they will answer each other's questions. Yes, they will. But if you are an admin, it is also your responsibility to make sure they're answering them correctly.
Right.
Because
Right.
sometimes they don't. So
Right.
to be really careful on that. But okay,
Right.
so a page, because
Yes.
then everyone can see, or
Because then everyone can see, and also because you don't have that option where people block each other's out. With groups, we've seen that some groups are private and they only let certain folks in, and so there become some issues there, some personal conflicts with groups. So I think the page is the safe route to go. And also in terms of our relationship with Facebook, Facebook recognizes pages as an official government source of information. So if there are any issues with troubleshooting that page, say you get locked out and you only had one admin, Facebook will more than likely transfer that responsibility and that admin rights to someone else. But it's trickier with a group that was managed by one person, and you have to, approve people and lock groups to join that group.
At Army Wife Network, we do have those rules of engagement that Brittany was talking about before, about what you can and cannot post, can you put pictures or whatever. And so, yeah, we don't mind them answering questions, and we do double check to make sure they're answering them correctly. We just ban links, because links take you anywhere.
non-official links.
Right. They'll just take you anywhere, and we can't vet those as easily as saying, yes, that's, a good resource or not a good resource. So that would be another tip. This one quick question I'm just going to answer. Someone wanted to know if active and National Guard people use VFRG, and I would just say the quick answer to that is yes. If you don't know what VFRG is, it's the virtual FRG. It's an online space for family readiness groups to get together, and you may want to Google or get some guidance from your local command on how to set up that for your groups.
But they're using that for secure information, and then having the Facebook page and directing them to become a member, because they have to prove who they are for that to be official, so they can share official information there. We're back to the audience. Do we have a question out there? Crickets. All right, we got more from here. You got one? Yes, ma'am.
How important are likes?
How important are likes?
You know that you have a certain number of likes.
So size of audience or likes
Yeah,
of a post?
likes on a page. We've been trying to grow our likes on a page, and it's very, very difficult. You're out there, you're constantly saying, join us, photo contest, blah, blah, blah. And we're slowly but surely creeping up to the 1,000 mark. I think we're really close.
So you actually mean how many fans? How important is it to have how many fans on your page?
Is it important or no?
I would say Brittany or Stephen, or anybody that wants to pipe in. Anyone else?
Using Facebook as an example in this instance with likes, I will honestly say that likes are not very important. One of the things that the Facebook government rep shared with our DoD social media team is that for any given post that you share on Facebook, only 16% of that audience receives that post in their news feed. So you'll look at the Army's Facebook page and say, hey, they have 1.9 million people who like their page. We want to get something posted on the Army's page so we'll reach all these people. But because we don't have a budget to promote those posts and boost that number up from that percentage, we focus our efforts on providing quality content, because the content, if you're providing those great visuals, those videos, those great photos, the people will come naturally. So I think it's more important when you're looking at your social media strategy to invest your efforts in figuring out who your audience is and what kind of information they want, what kind of information they need, so you can meet their needs and provide them with that content. Because once they start sharing that content and those shares go up, that's how things go viral, and that's how you have those breadcrumb effect. As the Army social media manager, I just don't want to connect to the people who like the Army's Facebook page or people who follow us on Twitter, because they like us for a reason. They want to get Army news and information. They have an affinity for the Army. There's a reason why they like our page. I want to communicate to the people who don't know anything about the Army, to let them know what their Army is doing for them. And so by providing that quality content and that content being shared, being retweeted, and that's how we're reaching the other audiences on social media.
I know that there's a lot of classes, webinars, or webcasts that you do on your site, Mike, or I'm sorry, Steve, for the Military Family Learning Network, and you said something similar. I mean, quality content is key, but how important would you say those likes are?
I would agree that
Okay.
I don't think they're important in and of themselves. I think really what you have to do with any of this is we do this for a reason, right? And you need to understand what your goals are in having a Facebook page. And I'm pretty sure, I know for me, my goal is not to have some number of likes. It's to somehow reach a particular audience that I'm trying to reach, or to communicate a certain message that I'm trying to communicate. And I don't think likes are generally the best measure of that. And so you need to, we always try and start with what is it you're trying to do, you know, I think everyone knows sort of backward planning, you know, what's your mission? And then, all right, how am I going to know that I'm getting there? What are those measures? And so those raw numbers, likes, or, you know, on Twitter they have followers. Well, for $100 you can buy 10,000 followers on Twitter, you know, and people do that so that when you go to their page, you're like, wow, look, here, this person must know what they're talking about. They have 20,000 followers. Either that or they had $200 in the bank, you know. So I think you need to focus on really what it is you're trying to do. Are you trying to affect some kind of a change in behavior? Are you trying to affect some communication? And then figure out a better way to measure that than just, you know, this many people click like.
So I'm going to be not devil's advocate necessarily, but Patty, I'll say this. Okay, so Army Wife Network never paid for a single like ever. Okay, all right. So, but, and it does excite us when we gain more fans. I'm not going to lie about that. That's very exciting to us. But what excites us more is when we see something that we put out that has engaged our fans. They've made comments. They have, you know, shared it. So that's what we like to see. And those things bring you more likes. I would say for you, and this is just kind of this is a Patty Tara conversation maybe, but it really, they have to come to AUSA family programs because they want information, because they are engaged, and I think that that two-way conversation is probably more of what is missing there, that would bring you more shares and then would get more likes. And you know, I know you're not out for, like, you know, the numbers, but that's what's exciting, is when you see something like the other day, we shared something that made it to almost over 1 million people. And it wasn't, you know, we don't have 1 million fans, but it went out to that many people and made its way back. And so, in a way, I don't know.
Joyce
I
is
guess I see both
bursting.
sides.
Joyce is
Well,
bursting to say
and,
something.
and I would just, you know, we had a mix of audience folks here. We have official Army and nonprofits and family readiness group leaders and a lot of bloggers. And we're all in some way in the information business. Our goal, or one of our goals, is to make sure that military families have good information about what's happening in the world that affects them and what resources are available to support them. And so to the official folks, look at us as friends and collaborators in that information process. You know, we talked about vetting information. If I can retweet something from the Army, I feel really good, because I know that's good information that I'm sending out to military families. We do the same thing on our Facebook page. We love having that official word from the military, and we can help you in that outreach. What is it? You got to see something 7 times before it sinks in. We can be one of those 7 times that's reaching out to those military families and getting them the right information that's needed. What was so frustrating a couple weeks ago when we had the shutdown is that a lot of those official sites weren't operational because the people who update them were furloughed. And so it took, but that information need was still there, and so it took a lot of us a lot more effort to find somebody to verify that official information. We can be partners in this, and we love it when folks said, here's the plan, help us get that information out. So remember, we're your friends, we're all in the same mission here, and so we love that official information, and we'll do what we need to share it. And if you want us to share something, just let us know, and we will.
All right, I just wanted to ask this question real quick for an online audience. They were asking Steve specifically where you can find out more about NetLit. Many of you guys don't know about Military Family Learning Network. You know about Blue Star Families, and you know what an FRG leader is, and you know NMFA. But they specifically wanted to know how they connect with you, Stephen.
Probably the best place to start would be at extension.org/network_literacy. There are some cards over here on the table, and some folks who are here can obviously grab those. We use the hashtag #NetLit most places because a lot of what we do is geographically dispersed. And so we try to bring together our information in that way. So you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Google+. And extension.org is the place where the Military Families Learning Network lives. And my organization, my community of practice, is a part of that. And our goal and our mission is to provide research-based information and tools, particularly to the military family service providers that can then provide it to the military families. So kind of a train-the-trainer model. But a lot of the information that's there is perfectly applicable to military families, other people who are involved in the nonprofit side.
All right. This one's for Kathy. Kathy, we talked about the needs of the unit changing and how when deployment, non-deployment, caregiving, we talked about all of that already. But this last part of this question was, what can we do to identify those critical windows of learning and when we can actually reach out? We talked about it in the speech, about when these spouses are reaching out and when can we go connect with them.
Right. Military families, including service members, want to get their information from their friends and neighbors. So recruiting people who are in as many different communities to be that line of information, whether it's reaching out through their Facebook pages, just like Joyce was talking, she can retweet things, so can the staff sergeant's wife or the corporal's wife. So getting those networks who are trusted by the people who aren't being reached right now, find out who is reaching them. Maybe there's some bunco group that's informal, that's not sponsored by anyone, but it's really popular. Figure that out and get to someone in there and get them to be an emissary for you. It's really all about trust. That's the currency that matters. So we have to get to the people who are the most vulnerable, and those are, of course, the people who are newest in and most junior, although not always. It's the people who are isolated for whatever reason are isolating themselves, and find out where there might be a point of connection, and have that be your emissary back in. And as you were saying, you got to know people before you can.
I'm so glad that people hear that now.
Yeah.
Thank you for years.
We have to all do that. Try to make those connections as early as possible. Certainly, incoming is the perfect time to try to capture people and convince them to come in. Never rely on the service member to get information to anyone in the family.
All right. During the last break, someone asked if our slides from our presentation would be available, and they will be on the AUSA website. You might have to look around on the AUSA family programs, and Miss Patty will link those.
And I just want to mention that
afterwards.
Yes, later. I do want to mention that a lot of what we relied on as far as information came from the Blue Star Families survey, and so if you have not taken a look at that, you need to go over to the Blue Star Families website and really read through that survey. It was very extensive and a great survey, great resource.
Thank you.
And so we were having a good time over there. Thanks for doing that. Since that's not our job, we liked that you let us present that. That was very nice of you, Kathy. Okay, so we have to wrap up here, but what I wanted to do, San Marcos Recruiting Company asked us a question. We weren't really sure who it's directed at, but I think this is a great way to end, so thanks, guys. The question is, how can my FRG make sure that we are receiving emails from you and your staff? So what I'd like to do, if you guys don't mind, start down with Kathy and work this direction. Tell us how we can connect with your organization.
We want everyone to connect. It's free and no obligation. We provide a lot of programs, but our membership numbers is what makes people want to partner with us. So please come to our website and give us your email. It's Blue Star Families. Just Google Blue Star Families, bluestarfam.org or bluestarfamilies.org. We'll get it to you too. And lots of great resources for all your folks, again, completely free.
Just going from the opposite direction, if you are an FRG leader or you're big into your FRG network, like those pages, like AUSA family programs, like Blue Star Families, like NMFA. That's where you're going to get that information from so that you can say, hey, this is a really cool thing. Let me put it out at the next meeting. That's what I always did.
If you want to connect with the Army social media team, of course, follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter as well. We read every single message that's posted on our page, and someone will reply if you have an urgent question. But if you would like to have an offline conversation and connect with us via email, our email box, of course, it's an acronym, so I'll spell it out. It's ocpa.osmd@us.army.mil. Again, that's OCPA for Office of the Chief of Public Affairs, .osmd for Online and Social Media Division at us.army.mil. So that's how you can get in touch with us.
At least half the alphabet in there, and it'll get somewhere.
If it's not red tape, it's acronym. But
It's probably hard to remember. So again, if you need any support, need any resources, feel free to tweet us. Feel free to put something on our Facebook page, and we'll definitely reply.
Yeah, when you see and hear all those letters, just start at the top down. Go to the Army page. Look for their pages that they like that say Public Affairs, and then go to the Social Media Division.
Probably the easiest thing is to Google Extension Network Literacy, or go to extension.org, and we're listed there as well. But Google is your friend in this case.
Militaryfamily.org, facebook.com/militaryfamily, @military_family. Follow me at NMFA Joyce. If you go on our website, militaryfamily.org, you can sign up. You can register as a user on the site, sign up to receive publications. We have one publication called our Spouse Club e-News that also goes to a lot of family readiness groups, so you can access that there and get your card to download the app because you'll get a lot of information that way as well.
I should mention, we of course have the Facebook and the Twitter too, but Blue Star Fam will get to you all.
That's a given, right?
Kathy, you'd be in trouble if you didn't mention that.
Big trouble, big trouble.
All right, and so anybody else? Everybody got all their stuff out?
You should do yours.
Good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
we'll end on an Army Wife Network note. You can find us at armywifenetwork.com. We also have a blog that is run by our core team, lovingasoldier.com. We have over 30 bloggers out there blogging about military lifestyle. It's really interesting to see everybody at the different parts of their journey, so you can definitely relate to something. You can find us at Facebook, facebook.com/armywifenetwork. Twitter.com/ArmyWifeNetwork, Pinterest.com/ArmyWifeNetwork. Yeah, I know, we just keep on going. You can find us everywhere, but I also don't want to, I'd be remiss, I'd be in trouble if, by our mentors especially, if I didn't tell you that you can find our book, 1001 Things to Love About Military Life, over at lovemilitarylife.com and also on Facebook and Twitter, so you guys should check that out. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. It was a lot
We
of
really
fun.
enjoyed it. We'll say thank you to Patty for having us here and letting us run the panel the way that we wanted to do it. And so if you liked it or disliked it, or if you have feedback, make sure that you're filling out the survey that needs to be turned in at the back of the room, the OPCA survey. It should be at their tables. It should be at your table, and you can fill it out and give feedback as to what you learned or what you'd like to learn next time at our family forums. Thank you.
Let's give a round of applause to this fantastic panel. Thank you so very much. Now, don't go anywhere. I just have a few closing remarks, but I have to give them their gifts or they won't come back.
That's not true. We would too come back.
Tara got one yesterday. She's getting skipped, just so you all don't feel
Patty
bad for
doesn't
her.
love me. Don't listen to what they say.
All right, so if the panel would like to go ahead and you're excused now. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. I do have an alibi with the FRG leader, who happens to be my lovely daughter, Megan Barron. Semke. Sorry, Vance. I always forget the Semke part. Anyway, this has been a great 2.5 days. I have to say, from the very beginning on Monday with our senior leaders to yesterday's amazing, powerful panelists and speakers, and today, all this phenomenal information that you get right from the folks that you are trying to reach. And that's why I think this panel, particularly, and Tara and Star, were so amazing to have with us and share all their knowledge. We're going to go back to the drawing board next year and decide what you all want us to talk about for the forums. And if you have any ideas, we would love to hear them at www.ausa.org/family. That's how you can get a hold of us. And of course, our Facebook page, which is AUSA Family, facebook.com, AUSA Family. And I hope that next year we'll be able to make Tara and Star's list of organizations that you can trust, because we do feel that at AUSA we can offer you quite a bit as well, and we've got wonderful opportunities to have you be engaged with us. We want to know and hear from you. Don't forget our spouse membership category that's gone, that we rolled out on Monday. We'd love for you all to join us. But more importantly, I just want to thank especially our senior spouses that are here with us today. Mrs. Odierno, Mrs. Campbell, Ray, Jorge, Mrs. Talley, Mrs. Vi, and I'm sorry that I don't recognize you, but I'm sure you're wonderful. Am I in trouble or what? Because you have all been here for the last 3 days and have been very, very supportive of all of us and all of you in the room, especially again to our virtual forum delegates and all the sites that have tuned in and all of you that have tuned in for the past 2.5 days. This could not have happened without the amazing help of some wonderful, wonderful people. And I want to go ahead and just give a shout out to my staff, and that would be Maranatha Bivens way in the back, who's been monitoring all the Facebook posts, getting all the questions in here. Holly Hodges, that many of you know Holly, she's probably in the admin room right now, but she's my assistant and has made sure that lots of all the little things have been put into place. We've got some wonderful temps as well, and so Tara and Brandon and Caitlin, you might have seen them running around. They've been wonderful. But I really also want to thank my counterpart over at Axum, and that's Paulette Fries. Paulette, where are you? Paulette and I, we start talking about this forum back in February, and we plan all the way to this point. And she has brought some of her ASCM colleagues with her who have volunteered for the last 2.5 days. And so if you will stand up and also be recognized, I would really appreciate all the AXM folks out there. So this concludes our 2013 Military Family Forums. Thank you again for your contributions, your attention, and always for your support. Thank you.